This is an ABC News Yahoo News live stream. The Democratic National Convention. Live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Here are Amy Walter and Rick Klein.
Hello and welcome to Charlotte, North Carolina. You are looking at a rainy Charlotte, North Carolina, but we are joining you from a very dry Time Warner Cable Center, stadium, also known as the Cable Box here locally in Charlotte, North Carolina. A packed stadium here waiting, of course, for the big speaker tonight. That's First Lady Michelle Obama. I'm joined, of course, by my colleague, Rick Klein. We're going to be co-pilots tonight, taking you through 4 hours of Democratic National Convention coverage.
We'll be here gavel to gavel all week, coming in at 7 o'clock Eastern, going through the final speeches, getting off the air around 11:30 every night. You can watch us at abcnews.com, also on our mobile devices, also at YouTube and at Yahoo News, all our partners in this, and hashtag us at DNC2012. We'll bring the best of your tweets. You can tweet us as well at Rick Klein and at Amy E. Walter. And Amy, no surprise that Michelle Obama is the lead-off speaker this week. She is the biggest star out there, the Obama campaign, knowing it needs to appeal to women. They are going to try to fire up the crowd very early on.
Well, and you've seen that two women have taken very big starring roles. Ann Romney, who had a very well received speech in Tampa, trying to really humanize her husband, show that he is worth women going out on a limb for and voting for. Michelle Obama, everybody already knows who she is. She doesn't need to introduce herself in the same way Ann Romney did. Doesn't need to introduce her husband. People know her husband is. What she needs to do is convince those wavering voters, those ones that Mitt Romney was trying to appeal to come back and vote for Barack Obama this year.
That's right. And one more note about our coverage. We are going to be dipping in and out of the speeches. We'll bring you the best of the best. We're also going to bring you an exciting lineup of guests, celebrities, famous for Washington people, famous for Charlotte people, of course, this week as well. And in that spirit, we wanted to show you one of the highlights of the early going. The gavel started at 5 o'clock, and this is Mayor Cory Booker of Newark, New Jersey, one of the true rising stars of the Democratic Party, getting the crowd going. Take a look.
Please listen to this, because when your country is in a costly war with our soldiers sacrificing abroad, and our nation is facing a debt crisis at home, being asked to pay your fair share isn't class warfare, it's patriotism. This is our platform. This is our American mission. These are the dreams of our fathers and mothers. This is the demand from the next generation who call to our conscience in a chorus of conviction in classrooms from sea to shining sea, from north to south, when our children proudly proclaim those sacred words from our most profound pledge that we are a nation with liberty and justice for all.
Newark Mayor Cory Booker there. Many people thinking that this is the man who's going to run against another guy who seems to rile up a partisan crowd, and that's, of course, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. But we wanted to throw it down to Jake Tapper, our White House correspondent, who has been covering all things White House for quite some time now. He's on the floor. Jake, we want to start off and talk to you about this new poll that the ABC Washington Post just came out with this afternoon about President Obama's favorability ratings, and specifically his favorability ratings among women, the very group of people that, of course, the First Lady is going to be talking to specifically tonight.
Yeah, the poll has results that we haven't seen in other polls, showing that President Obama, having gone from a good showing when it comes to favorability, unfavorability among women registered voters, is now underwater in this new ABC News Washington Post poll. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's something along the lines of 46 or 47% approval and 50% disapproval. Do I have that right?
That's right, 50% disapproval, 46% approval, favorability, and overall it's a 49-47 unfavorable split among registered voters. Do the Obama folks have a theory as to what this happened? Are they just chalking this up to a week of him getting bashed on national television last week?
Well, they point to the number that shows President Obama over water, for want of a better term, with male voters. Something like 50-48 disapproval among registered male voters, which is also an unusual result for President Obama for showing for a poll. And so their suggestion is that this poll is an outlier since it doesn't match any other poll that they've seen. I think the more pertinent point, perhaps, is that this 2 months before Election Day, what we have is a public that is in many ways growing weary of both Mitt Romney and President Obama. There were more negative ads run in the month of August than I think were run in October 2010. The saturation of the airwaves, the negative ads, the attacks by Mitt Romney and Barack Obama are weighing heavily on both their campaigns. Mitt Romney's numbers in the approval disapproval are just as bad, if not worse. So I think that is one of the key items that both Obama and Romney have to consider going forward in this increasingly nasty campaign. That's cheers behind me, by the way, for the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, the host city, Mayor Fox.
Indeed, yeah, quite a dynamic speaker. And Jake, finally, while we have you, what are the Obama folks realistically expecting out of this convention? Do they think there's such a thing as a convention bounce, or is this more about shoring up support in particular demographic groups?
They're talking down the notion of a bounce. Of course, we saw that Mitt Romney probably didn't get any bounce at all. They have said that the race has been pretty much locked and consistently locked at 45-46, 45-45, somewhere around there for quite some time. They think it's going to stay like that for some time. Their big goal is for Michelle Obama's speech, Bill Clinton's speech, and Barack Obama's speech, a different goal for each one of them. Michelle Obama, she will be the one who testifies about the president's empathy. Empathy is obviously a place that President Obama has an advantage when it comes to Mitt Romney. More Americans, according to polls, think that he has their interests at heart than think that about Mitt Romney. So she'll be testifying about that, talking about the motivations behind some of his legislation, how his mother's illness and her struggles with insurance companies led him to push hard for health care reform, for that health care legislation, how his grandmother's struggles working at a bank in Hawaii when she was passed over for promotion after promotion led him to have the Lilly Ledbetter Equal Pay Act be the first piece of legislation he signed into law. She'll explain why he did what he did, so that voters, even if they don't necessarily approve of his record, will, in her hopes, approve of the reasons for what he did. Bill Clinton, obviously, to testify, to give an account, to verify for his economic theories, for President Obama's economic theories. And then Barack Obama needs to paint a picture on Thursday night about what the next 4 years would look like in an Obama administration, what he wants to do, why his path is the correct path.
Thank you very much, Jake Tapper, joining us from the floor. We'll be checking in with you many times here during the convention. And I wanted to turn right to our guest here who knows a lot about this stadium and a lot about this convention, Steve Kerrigan, who is the chairman of this convention. So
Hi,
tell us, I'm very good. Thank you. I've had an excellent.
Welcome to Charlotte.
Thanks. I've had great food. Great food.
Good.
We have been well fed.
Very,
glad. It's part
very,
of Southern
very, very
hospitality.
well fed. All right. So, what does someone like you do once this all comes together? Are you just a bundle of nerves right now, or is this a relief?
No, we've been planning this for a year and a half here in Charlotte. We've got a great team on the ground, and we're focused on the president's directive to us of making this the most open and accessible convention in history. And so we continue to be focused on that. We open and close this convention week with. For the first time ever with events open to the public. We had 50,000 people in Uptown Charlotte yesterday. We have thousands and thousands more coming on Thursday night to Bank of America Stadium. So we're just thrilled with the way we're kicking off this convention and frankly, the way we're doing this convention and the fact that we're focused on engaging more Americans than ever before. So that's what we're focused on right now.
All right, Steve, it is pouring outside, as you know. Just about this time on Thursday night, we expect to be in the open air. What happens if it's rain like this? Are we going to be out there anyway?
We're going to Bank of America Stadium, rain or shine. We have, of course, contingency plans, and we want to make sure that folks are safe. But right now, we have confidence we're going to be there, rain or shine.
Rain or shine, even though it means getting a little bit wet. All right, Steve, from your perspective, a lot of this is just programming this enormous event. What is it important that you communicate in terms of the physical space, in terms of what's going on inside this arena that you're going to be broadcasting back to television screens across the country?
I think what you see with our stage placement is we are in an end zone configuration, and the speaker's really surrounded by guests, which we haven't had before. And that's really to convey the message of Americans coming together around this singular purpose of moving our country in the right direction and moving us forward to create more opportunity for all. And that's what this convention stage is supposed to convey. And we think we hit it out of the park, and we're incredibly pleased with the way we did it. We are focused on making sure that more people can get in here and participate and get involved and go through our 8 different digital platforms to participate in convention and watch everything live stream as you guys are doing. So we're incredibly thrilled with the fact that we've been able to make this the most open and accessible convention ever.
Tell me what the relationship is like between the convention and the city. The traffic is a little bit crazy. The security is intense. If I lived anywhere near the downtown, I would be terrified to try to drive down here.
Well, I live in Uptown,
All right.
and our goal has always been to make sure that Uptown remains open for business, which I think you see that it is. People have to walk sometimes or drive a little different or drive a little longer, but our partnership with the city and Mayor Fox, who you just heard, has been better than any other convention city before. And I did this for my hometown of Boston in 2004. And that partnership is what has allowed us to be so successful, because we have to coordinate. We have to communicate about everything from traffic and security to how we work with our demonstrator partners and other people to make sure that everybody has a safe experience while they're here, and everybody has an opportunity to have their voice be heard.
Steve, you mentioned Boston. Of course, you used to work for the late Senator Ted Kennedy, who was a huge presence in 2004 in Boston, and then again in 2008 with that very emotional speech. There's going to be a video tribute to him tonight. We're going to hear from Joe Kennedy III, Caroline Kennedy later in the week. How is the Kennedy spirit infusing the proceedings, and what does it feel like to be here without the senator?
Well, obviously my heart's heavy. The first convention I ever went to was with him in 1992, and then I stayed with him for a long time. And his presence is missed here, but I said in my remarks earlier that even though his clarion call can't be heard, he told us a long time ago that the work goes on, and we've got to keep going. And his spirit is alive in every one of these delegates and everybody who works hard for the issues that the Democratic Party cares about. And so although we miss him desperately, we know he's with us each and every day.
All right. Steve Kerrigan, the CEO of the convention, thank you so much. And we're going to have you sign in on our guest book. It's an iPad guest book. We want you to maybe draw a little something, maybe suggest a new slogan for Romney Ryan. You name it. Take your time. Make sure you sign your name so we know exactly where that's from. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Will do.
All right. Our own Dan Kleffler took a look at the Obama first term. Take a look at his take on how we got here over the last 4 years.
A New York subway ride, an unpredictable adventure filled with colorful people and a potpourri of questionable distractions. We're taping that direction. Much like the last 4 years for President Obama. For Democrats, there was no other choice in 2012 than the man that got his ticket to ride to national prominence after delivering their keynote address in 2004.
My presence on this stage is pretty unlikely.
With a few detours along the way, he pulled off the nearly impossible by beating Hillary Clinton in the 2008 primary and securing the presidency over John McCain by a near 2-to-1 margin. 2-to-1. Oh, okay. For the first 2 years, it was all aboard the Hope Train, making local stops at the economy, where the president had to pull a $787 billion emergency brake. You crazy dude, I'm a professional. He had to pull the brake in order to keep the economy from going into a depression.
Stand clear of the closing economy, please.
With America's health on a lot of people's mind, the president passed the Affordable Care Act requiring all Americans to carry health insurance. Along the route, he wound down the war in Iraq, but he doubled down in Afghanistan. The president called for a military surge of more than 30,000 to fight the war on terror in Afghanistan. Most of those troops are now headed home. Early May 2011, almost 10 years after the 9/11 attacks, the president's popularity train went express when he gave the orders for Navy SEALs to go in and take out Osama bin Laden.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
But with the unemployment rate above 8%, the president has been pushed around for not doing enough to create jobs in the economy, forcing some people to get creative with how they make ends meet.
So what are you going to report?
Whatever you want. You want to watch?
Yes.
So, come November 6th, that could put the president's ride out of service, and he may be forced to call a cab from the White House. Dan Plepler, ABC News.
Our thanks to Dan for navigating the streets of Manhattan to tell us the story of the Obama presidency. We are joined now by the man, Sam Donaldson. Thank you for being here, Sam.
It's a pleasure, but God has turned against the Democrats. I mean, the hurricane missed Tampa, hit New Orleans, then turned around almost 180 degrees, and here we are drenched.
We are drenched, and rain or shine on Thursday. And Sam, we were there in the open air 4 years ago, anchoring coverage just like this, and it was an incredible, moving experience even to feel the energy, just the human energy. He's not going to get anything like that this year. Is it fair to make the comparison, though? There's been so many conventions, so many years, and is 2008 just going to have to be held as separate and above?
Almost anything in politics is fair. Have you noticed? The lowest blows are fair.
That's right.
No, I think it's fair. He was new, he was fresh, new ideas and all of that. Now he's got to defend a record which you don't want to run on. So what are they doing? No. Are you better off? No, I lost my job. I lost my house. No, it's America. Isn't America better off? I love America, but I want my house back. I want my job. It's a tough sell.
So how much of we just saw Dan Kleffler's piece about the Obama presidency. How did we get here from there? How much of that does he have to address? There are a lot of Republicans who say he should just come out and actually do a mea culpa, Sam. Just come out and say, you know what? They're not. You're right. There are a couple of things that, right? I messed up, but these are the good things.
Let's see how that works. Yes, I was a failure. I never got the job done. But re-elect me and give me another chance. I don't think that's a good campaign slogan. Well, what he's going to say, as we all know, is we made progress. We're digging ourselves out of a deep hole that the Republicans put us in. And we're going to get out, just trust me, for another 4 years. But if you put them back in charge, down into the hole again. That's all he can do.
We're getting an ovation behind us for Nancy Pelosi, the former House Speaker, as well as the women of the House. It's all about the women, just like it was last week. We're going to have Michelle Obama out there. Is there anything special in the Democrats' appeal? How do they get women on their side, given what we're seeing now about some women turning against President Obama in terms of favorability?
No, I think the women will, to the extent that we already see in the polls, be for the Democrats, because Mitt Romney has taken positions that just don't have it. And as far as Hispanic Americans go, I mean, we have the keynoter tonight, right? Julian Castro, the mayor of San Antonio. Everybody knows him. In case you don't know him, he'll be introduced by Joaquin Castro, the mayor's brother.
Who's also running for Congress.
Yes, and you get 2 Hispanic Americans for the price of 1. So I think the Democrats will do fine with women and Hispanic Americans. To what extent is the key, isn't it?
It always is, Sam. Thank you for always your perspective for all of this. We're coming back to you multiple times.
Multiple times.
Stick around.
You can hang out in our box anytime.
Ka-choo.
I've been trying, Sam. I've been trying to get you on Twitter. I still want someone to start stuff that Sam Donaldson says. It'd be a huge hit.
Do you
I'm going
realize
to stay on this.
We have the Attorney General of California.
Yes, we do.
leaving.
Goodbye. Yes, we do. All right, but Sam brings up a good point, of course, which is how do you keep people motivated when the actual environment out there is so depressing? Right?
Yes, that's right.
And we're not just talking about the weather. We're talking about the economic situation.
Obviously, you have to make some acknowledgement to the fact that people are suffering out there, but he has to be held responsible. Ultimately, it's his economy. It's been 4 years. It's not like he's brand new anymore.
Right. Well, we're very happy to have joining us. She's not out there with the women of Congress, but she is a woman in elective office. Kamala Harris, who's the Attorney General of California. Thank you for joining us.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, guys.
5 minutes ago, you were up there. You have an official role, correct, as at this convention?
I do. I am a co-chair with Governor Martin O'Malley of the Rules Committee. And so we were there to formalize the work that we did with the Rules
That
Committee.
does sound like hard work. I'm glad that you were able to complete it in time to get up here in any event.
Well, it's very difficult to lift a gavel and then to throw it down.
But you did it. You did it very well. All right, let's talk a little bit. As Attorney General, you've done a lot of work on the foreclosure crisis in California.
Yes.
Talk to us about the fact that we're not hearing a lot from either party, it seems, about the housing crisis, which is still affecting people and as well as the economy.
You haven't yet, perhaps, but certainly when you travel the country, you travel.
Get you to pull your microphone just up a little bit. There we go. There we go. Much
Perfect.
better.
When you travel the country and you travel the many states, it is one of the priorities of the folks that you will talk with when you stand in their living rooms about their concerns. We had in this country, a real serious consequence as a result of the crash of the market.
That's right.
California had 7 of the top 10 cities hardest hit, and I've met with many of those homeowners and many of those families, and they are people who simply wanted to live the American dream and did not have the ability to navigate their way through the foreclosure crisis, and that's part of the reason that the 49 attorneys general of the United States joined in a multi-state to address that issue and deal with consequence and also deal with bringing relief to those homeowners.
But we're not hearing so much about it. We didn't really hear much about it at the Republican convention. I don't know that I've heard much about it, at least in the briefings we've had from Democrats about it.
I think you should stay tuned.
All right, I should stay tuned.
Yeah.
All right. A little hint. I gotta tell you something. Last night, as I was stuck in traffic getting out of here because it was so much, I Googled something. I Googled list of possible first woman president. Okay, first name to come up. Do you have any guesses?
Hillary Clinton.
No, actually, you beat her right now on Google. I can confidently predict. So how do you deal with this? I mean, it's got to be a strange feeling. Like, people talk about you. You're always on these lists. Every time people make a list of, wow, she could be the first woman president. But, you've got a job to do. There's a long time to go for. How do you deal with balancing that national profile with your state job?
Well, it's pretty clear for me, which is that I'm completely focused on what's right in front of me, for a number of reasons. One, I think life is too short. You have to really enjoy what you're doing today, and I'm also a little superstitious. I think you concentrate on that thing out there, and then you're gonna trip over the thing in front of you. And I love my job. I love being the Attorney General of California. I think it's one of the most significant elected positions in the country in terms of your ability to really have direct impact on the lives of people and make a difference. And so far we've been able to do that. We've been focused on the issue of privacy. We've been focused on the issue of the foreclosures and what we should do around predatory lending practices. We passed the California Homeowner Bill of Rights, which is considered, I think, a model for the country. So there's a lot of good work we've been able to achieve in a short time, and I want to continue to do it.
All right, are we going to see you on the campaign trail as a surrogate for the president?
Yes, I am a co-chair of the campaign. I was there in Des Moines when between Christmas and New Year's 4 years ago, we needed to knock on doors and talk with the caucuses there, and I've been committed ever since, and we'll do whatever needs to get done.
And your role as surrogate, do they have you out there talking about some of the women's issues, or
Absolutely.
Is it a broader portfolio?
It's a broad portfolio. It's about the economy. It's about the Affordable Care Act. California, during my tenure, filed a number of Friends of the Court briefs to defend the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. It has been about the foreclosure issue. It has been about a number of issues of concern, including women's issues, and, for example, what we want in terms of smart public policy and what the Affordable Care does to offer that.
Talk to us about Michelle Obama. This is her big night, obviously a big night to reach female voters as well. What is her appeal? What is the secret? What makes her the most popular political figure in the country?
Well, she's a very smart person. She's an incredible mom. She's an incredible wife. She loves this country. And that's so evidenced by even just the premier issue that she chose to focus on, which is our veterans and our military families. And I think that when people listen to her and when they watch her, they see a very authentic woman, a very authentic person. And that's an attractive quality, and it's something we want in our leadership, and I think you get that with Michelle Obama.
Okay, I'm not going to beat the women president thing, but we got to go back to one more moment, which is 2016 comes around. Martin O'Malley, you were up on stage with him. There's a lot of talk that you two could be in the mix. I mean, are we going to see you in like Iowa or New Hampshire in the next, say, year or so? Should we expect you to pop up in those places?
Who knows where we're going to be a year from now. I'm just going to, at some point, take this awkward microphone off and go walk outside.
very-
That's about my immediate plans.
We're
Those
very-
are my immediate plans.
We're very old school here. This is what we like to do. We're going back. I also want to note that in our doodle page here, we have Kamala Harris doing a pretty
That's
good
not bad.
job of California.
That's not bad.
Pretty good. I
We've
mean,
had some bad states over the last
we
week.
have.
That was actually pretty good.
It's not a sock. It is the state of California. Everybody, it's there, and somewhere Sacramento. What right?
Is right up there. LA's down here. San Diego, San Francisco. That's Nevada. That
pretty
shape. Yes.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
All right, Kamala Harris, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Really
Really
appreciate it.
that.
It's great to be here.
And we should mention more about the awkward microphones that we have on our heads here. We're going to be streaming all night long at abcnews.com, at Yahoo News, also on the YouTube Politics page. You can watch us at the ABC News Politics, all of the various apps and the devices that you can watch us a million different ways. And if you want to watch the speakers, we've got that live feed up as well at abcnews.com. So we're going to try to bring you the lively, entertaining coverage. Please hashtag us at #DNC 2012 as you see the women of the House of Representatives right now getting this crowd going in the early going in a night that we're going to hear so much from the women, capped, of course, by Michelle Obama.
That's right. I loved your Google statistic. That's fantastic. I love that. Just what one Google search can do, and you have a great thing.
Indeed.
All right, so join once again, Jeff Greenfield. Thank you very much for coming back to us. I'm also having issues here with this cord. I feel like we're tweeting. We have all this equipment, and yet we're still tethered like it's the 1970s. All right, Jeff. In 1 minute or in a couple of minutes, we're supposed to get a tribute to Jimmy Carter in video. And Jimmy Carter, though, has been used as something of a four-letter word on the campaign trail. Paul Ryan saying over and over again, this is actually an administration that's worse than the Carters. So what is this video about, and how do the Obama people talk about it?
It's sort of obligatory. This isn't the Soviet Union where you're an unperson. And you'll notice that it's not on in the 10 o'clock hour.
That's true.
Which is,
but it's on here. It's on our show.
Yes. Okay. But the point is, Jimmy Carter was, for the Democrats, and this may sound unkind, but the closest thing they have to Herbert Hoover. He suffered the worst loss of any incumbent Democratic president, I think, certainly in the 20th century, maybe ever. And it's paved the way. I mean, that election was when, Ronald Reagan came in and the conservative movement took a giant step forward. I've always thought that Jimmy Carter was he was a great candidate for the nomination, a pretty bad candidate for the general election. He almost blew that election, or not for Ford prematurely liberating Poland in that debate. And a pretty darn good ex-president with Habitat for Humanity, except if you ask other presidents who regarded him as an interloper who kept interfering in various negotiations. So you also have to remember that Jimmy Carter was elected 36 years ago. All right? Now look down around this convention and ask yourself, how many people do you think were eligible to vote for Jimmy Carter at this convention? And I'd be one of them, I guess. I don't guess.
I don't think he was
right.
alive.
And
President Obama wasn't eligible to vote for him, as a matter of fact.
Precisely.
Julian Castro was 1 year old. So.
Exactly. So that tells you that this is a kind of required tribute to a guy, who did get elected president. They don't want to completely diss him because it looks unkind. But I think it's fair to say that Jimmy Carter is not regarded in the Democratic Party as the exemplar of what they want, as opposed to the man who will be speaking tomorrow night.
In the other corner, of course, Barack Obama has gone to President Clinton and said, I need you, Bill. Essentially, I need you to help me. You've got that appeal. You've got the secret sauce of what I need, and there's got to be nothing better for Bill Clinton than to be able to step into that limelight on Wednesday night.
We've been waiting since the Republican convention to get the responses. I mentioned to you earlier, we know the response to We Build It, we make it possible. Right. Okay. But now it's going to be Bill Clinton's task to set down two things. Why Mitt Romney is wrong for the country, and why Barack Obama's first term merits a second term. And I think what we've seen from polling and from the whole flow of this election is the second part of that is way harder than the first, because you have to overcome the numbers, which are just not that good. You can argue whose fault, we're on the way up. And I just have a feeling that this convention, maybe more than they're waiting for Barack Obama's speech, is waiting for Bill Clinton to say to them and to the country, here's the case for the first term.
Give us the message, right? I mean,
Right.
essentially tell us how we should be talking about this economy, how we should be talking about this president.
Yeah, because there is, if Bill Clinton were not such a great natural politician, he could have been either a great strategist or a pretty darn good speechwriter, at least in political speeches. And by all evidence of the press, this is what he's been doing himself. And as a retired speechwriter, just on tactical grounds, I'm so curious to see. I want to hear these arguments. I want to know what he's absorbed from the Republican convention and how he plans to answer that, because I have a very strong feeling that whatever he says is going to be a major theme of the Democratic Party from here on in.
Well, speaking of which, the one thing that we remarked on from Tampa was there's a really deep bench that Republicans have going into 2016. Young, minority. I mean, this is very, very, very deep.
Yeah.
You look at the 2016ers for the Democrats, you start with Hillary Clinton, and you kind of drop down after that. So give me your thoughts on the two benches and why we have this disparity.
I need to be totally candid with you. I believe in a First Amendment exemption to punish people who just talk about the 2016 election before this one is done.
Oh, come on.
I know. Look.
All right. I know.
You know. I live in the heartland of America, Amy, the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I don't live in Washington, but I mean, I honestly think at some point, I'd just like to get this one done. That said, because there's nothing. There's not like a second ballot question here.
Right.
You're right. As it happens, the Republicans, partly because they had so much success in the 2010 election at the gubernatorial and senatorial level, so they've thrown into play a raft of people, relatively young, many of them not the classic Republican, white male, and that's right. Now, if you think about Hillary Clinton, and assuming she's not tired of all this, and you think about Andrew Cuomo, then you start really, then you see the people who are putting their names forward. All I know is whenever there's an election, we never have a shortage of candidates.
Really?
Yeah.
Somehow that works out, doesn't it?
We've never had an election where they said, gee, the last time, except for Gore and Bradley.
Right, two, yeah.
That was a two-person race. They'll show up. We also don't know. I mean, if we were having this, conversation another election ago, Barack Obama would have been on nobody's short list of president. So we don't know in 2014 what dynamic Democrat may show up and march into the State House or U.S. Senate and go,
that person.
Interesting.
That's right. All right, Jeff Greenfield, our Yahoo News contributor, our friend and colleague. We appreciate you being with us. We'll check back with you this week. Really appreciate it. Okay. This is the former President of the United States, Jimmy Carter.
As President of the United States. I said then that America needed a president who shares your dreams and takes the strength and wisdom from you, the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, both now and for the next 4 years, we have just such a leader in the White House. Something you realize quickly in the Oval Office is that the easy decisions are not the ones that make their way to your desk. Whether they're issues of war and peace or grave economic matters, be they popular or unpopular, only a president can make those most difficult choices. In those moments, it takes more than a grasp of policy. It takes integrity and an understanding of why and whom you serve. From President Obama's first day in office, I've watched him, as I know you have, face these tough decisions and always put the interests of middle-class Americans above those who, often with the larger wallets, have an ever louder voice. I've admired him for that. Because President Obama sits behind that desk, everyday people, from Plains, Georgia to Pittsburgh, have someone who's on their side, thinking about them, working to give them an equal chance in life. In just 4 short years, he has worked to avert economic calamity, brought a dignified end to the ill-conceived war in Iraq, and signed into law historic health care reform, a dream that was already decades overdue when I called for it at this convention 36 years ago. And he has done it all in the face of bitter, unyielding, in fact, unprecedented partisan opposition. Overseas, President Obama has restored the reputation of the United States within the world community. Dialogue and collaboration are once again possible, with the return of a spirit of trust and goodwill to our foreign policy. Of course, there remains much to do. In communities across America and in countries around the world, life is too hard for too many people. We see their struggles, and our hearts go out to them. And in the coming years, our hands must continue to reach out to them. Yet for all that remains to be done, at home and abroad, the evidence is overwhelming. President Obama is a leader for America as we face the onslaught of some of the most complicated domestic and international challenges to confront any U.S. president in modern times. It's up to all of us to make sure that the American people understand exactly what is at stake and at risk in this election. With President Obama in the Oval Office, we can make good progress toward becoming a fairer, stronger, more prosperous, and inclusive America. A nation adjusted to changing and challenging times while holding true to unchanging principles. A leader among the community of nations. Next month, God willing, I will enter the 88th year of my life. And 1 month later, Rosen and I will enter a voting booth in our hometown of Plains and cast another vote for Barack Obama and Joe Biden. We will do so with the confidence and conviction that they understand the challenges and difficult choices that face our nation and our people, in fact, all peoples of the world, in the years ahead. One thing I have learned over my lifetime as a submarine officer, as president, and as leader of the Carter Center is that the biggest challenges and problems that we face don't lend themselves to quick fixes, nor to the snappy rhetoric of a television commercial. Solutions are complex and difficult, requiring the judgment, skill, and patience to pursue the right policies for the right reasons. There's a clear choice facing voters this November, and I am confident that when the facts and policies have been examined, when the record and performances have been reviewed, Barack Obama and Joe Biden will once again be elected to lead our beloved country to a better future. Thank you.
That was the 39th president of the United States, Jimmy Carter. It is the harsh judgment of history that gives Jimmy Carter a nice little video tribute. And, of course, the 42nd president gets his whole night tomorrow night.
Yes, indeed. All right.
We're joined now by Richard Schiff, the actor known in these circles, of course, for West Wing fame. You're never going to leave that down in crowds like this. I'm sure you know that.
No, I'm not. It's the one time I get to feel like Elvis returning to Memphis.
Exactly. A lot of people still inspired by that. But most recently, the star of a new online series, an on-demand series called Chasing the Hill. Yes. I've got a cameo in it, which is really cool. I'm psyched about that.
A little more than a cameo, actually.
Really? Well, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
We were editing it the other day, and I asked Brent to cut you out a little bit. You're stealing the show a little bit too much.
Well, he's known to do that. You give him like a little bit of a really
smile. He won't stop smiling. Yeah. No matter what the subject is, he won't stop smiling.
Have you seen this view we have? I mean, this is pretty cool.
It's pretty happy.
Yeah,
it makes you happy.
So talk to us a little about the series, and you haven't done that many political series since The West Wing, but you're dipping your toe back in these waters.
Well, I did a little movie called Knife Fight, which is actually screening here at the convention that I did.
The Chris Lehane, right?
Chris Lehane thing, yeah. And that's the only political thing up till now, and I've usually turned them down. And Brent Roski, who's the creator and other executive producer on this, is along with me, came to me about the show, and I was resistant. And then he went ahead and redeveloped it for somebody else, and then I saw it and kind of loved it. And I thought, you know what, I want to get involved in this. So that we decided to work together and created a fantastic character for myself. Found one for yourself, and so it's exciting. It's very different. This is a scene between. Is this showing right now?
No,
we're just putting this on in the.
This is just for us.
We're live. Hey, keep talking.
How are you? And it's a much more private and personal look at the run of a congresswoman trying to get re-election in this time of Citizens United and money problems and so on.
Oh, so does he play a super PAC evildoer? Is that his role?
Yes.
You'd be
typecasting,
very, very, very good at. Okay.
Yeah, under the cover of a journalist.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so tell us a little bit about you are the husband then of the candidate?
No, I am someone who had a relationship with the candidate.
Interesting.
But is also a power broker in the party.
Okay.
And so I have a say as to whether she is going to get certain backing or not, and that's what that scene in the bedroom happened to be about.
Interesting place to be taking that.
That was Robin Wiegert,
who they have not seen yet or they will see someday, who is a brilliant
Remember
actress
from
Deadwood, and we've been wanting to work together for a long time,
Right.
and so that's been fun for us.
All right, so tell me, for those people who are going to tune in saying, "Oh my God, I can't wait! It's going to be Toby back on
It's not.
screen." That's what I mean.
not
All
Toby,
right,
he
so
says.
that's what I'm telling you. So, what do they need to know? Who is this guy that they're going to see on Chasing the Hill?
His name is Tobias. No, it's a little bit different. He happens to look a little bit like Toby, a little grayer,
You can't help.
little
that.
grayer, a little better looking than Toby. But it's in the political world, so people will make their comparisons and whatever. But this guy has much more real power and is a little bit.
Is it a little less idealistic, a little more?
I think that goes hand in hand. If you're gonna actually ascertain power, you have to lose a little bit of the idealism. I think that's kind of a law of physics. But he's also a little bit of a looser character. He's not as tight, complex, and he's not as dark as Toby was.
So let's talk politics for a second.
But when you say political words that come out, people are going to go,
everybody's
oh,
going to
that's
say,
They'll
"Oh, right,
find the
that's
clips,
the,
yeah. So you're always involved with political events, the Creative Coalition. You're very active in a lot of different efforts. Your sense of Obama, if we were here, or if you were here last time around, where are you now? Are you here? Are you there? Where?
Last time around being 4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago.
I had a conversation with some of his very personal friends and backers back in Chicago. He said something very interesting, which is that the greatest thing that he will have ever done is to get elected. And that's undeniable. The same could be said about Jackie Robinson putting on a uniform. The greatest thing he could have ever done is to go out on the field for the first time. Doesn't mean he wasn't a great second baseman, third baseman, Brooklyn Dodger, great ball player, but he's known for being the first. And I think this president is historical because he got elected. Beyond that, he's a human being, and he's someone who took over the presidency at probably the worst possible time because we weren't even in the recession very long. Roosevelt was in it 3 or 4 years. I mean, the country was in the Depression 3 or 4 years before Roosevelt, so we already knew we were in trouble. Somehow, the perspective can be turned to make it seem like Obama got in, and now all of a sudden we're not doing well. Well, clearly, the 8 years prior kind of was the cause and effect of that. So the PR is tough. And he's up against an obstructionist House and oppositional party. And given that, he's not my political ideal, personally. I think he's a little conservative for my taste. But I remember him in his campaign speeches, and I see a president that's done exactly what he said he was going to do. Health care, and he said he was going to surge in Afghanistan, which I didn't agree with, but he did. I think partly in order to get bin Laden, partly as a flank for Pakistan, which I think they're very worried about, and bring down the effort in Iraq. You have 3 wars that we inherited from Bush. You had Iraq, you had Afghanistan, and the war on drugs, which has been going on for 40 trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. How do you balance that with lower taxes? It's not possible. Plus, you have a workforce which is shrinking and a retiring force which is expanding. So it's a reverse pyramid from the Social Security, from the days when Social Security began. It's an impossible mathematical logarithm to correct in 6 weeks when the criticism began from the other side.
It sounds like you almost go ahead. Amy.
Well, where would you be? You had to either in your role as Toby or as your new role when you have to give the advice to the candidate who has this in front of them, because it's not simply that people are frustrated because he didn't live up to the expectations of accomplishments. There's some frustration that he did not live up to the I'm going to change politics, right?
Well,
the idealistic piece that everybody said is going to go in and stop all of this pettiness and infighting.
I mean, it was an ambitious idea. I thought that the nature of the way we did business with each other might very well change. Who knew that the reactionary reaction would be to actually go the polar opposite of that and to make it impossible to even sit down in the first place? It was tough to anticipate, but that's what happened. You got to go in with the full kind of torch, burning, and hope that people follow you. And if they don't, okay, realism is settled in. The pragmatist has to take over, and then you have to become a fighter, and you got to get in there and scrap. And maybe he was a little slow in realizing that you have to bring a gun to a knife fight if you want to win. And now I think he's, in the last year or two, I think that's where he's at. And I think the thing you're going to see in the convention is an Obama that's going to come out, and you're going to see a fighter.
We'll get the fighter in. Richard Schiff, the new series, download it. I tell you to download it even if I wasn't in it. I really promise about it. It's called Chasing the Hill, chasingthehill.com. They're on to episode 2. Episode 3 I've heard is really good. This is just the buzz on the street.
And you're in.
Thank you. Good evening, delegates. This is the first convention since 1956 that we meet without Senator Kennedy. But make no mistake, he is here with us this evening. I see him in the passion of our delegates, the character of our candidates, and the causes that unite us. For my Uncle Teddy, politics was always about people. He was from a big family, and he understood that lives are measured not by line items in a budget, but by first days of school, last days of summer, by promotions won and jobs lost, new homes, broken hearts, baptisms, funerals, and every precious moment in between. I remember campaigning with him once in Texas for then Senator Barack Obama. We showed up at a hall in a small border town with only a handful of voters to greet us. He didn't care. There were working folks who had come out to support our candidate. Uncle Teddy got up, raised his hands, and belted out, "Ay, Jalisco, no te rajes," in a strong Boston accent. The crowd went crazy for the old ranchero song and the Massachusetts mariachi who sang it. It was Uncle Teddy at his best, and he gave his best to everyone he met, whether a sick child, an injured soldier, an unemployed worker. That idea guided him through the bigger battles: to guarantee the right to organize, to end apartheid, bring peace to Northern Ireland, and health care to all. It guides us, and it guides us in the tough campaign ahead as we fight for our middle class and an economy that's built to last, defend a woman's right to choose, keep a college education affordable, protect our seniors' retirement security, and ask every American to do their part to safeguard the promise of this country. 4 years ago, Uncle Teddy marveled at the grit and grace of a young senator who embodied the change our country sorely needed. As we pause today to remember Senator Kennedy, we recommit ourselves to the leader he entrusted to carry on our cause. Thank you very much.
For all those whose cares have been our concern, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.
No matter who writes the history books, when people look back on this century, they will say that Edward Kennedy was one of the ablest and most productive, most compassionate, and most effective men who served in the United States Senate in the entire history of the country.
Now to Boston as we show you live coverage of the debate between Democratic incumbent Edward Kennedy and his Republican challenger, Mitt Romney.
I believe that abortion should be safe and legal in this country. I believe that since Roe v. Wade has been the law for 20 years, that we should sustain and support it. And I sustain and support that law and the right of a woman to make that choice.
On the question of the choice issue, I have supported the Roe v. Wade. I am pro-choice. My opponent is multiple choice. When, Mr. Romney, are you going to tell the people of Massachusetts which health care program you favor?
I have a plan. I have a position paper on health care. I'm happy to show it to you, Senator, anytime you'd like.
Mr. Romney, it isn't a question of showing me your paper. It's a question of showing all of the people in here that are watching this program the paper.
Well, they could get.
They ought to have an opportunity to know.
And I think it's a wonderful idea to take it through piece by piece. And
that's what you have to do as legislator.
I understand.
That's exactly
Senator.
what you have to do as legislator. Now he's for family leave. Now he looks like he's for minimum wage. Now he's for education reform. If we give him 2 more weeks, he may even vote for me, because those are the things I am for. Mitt Romney called me to congratulate me on being reelected to the United States Senate.
The best way to find out about what a party will do is what it has done. We were the ones that brought higher education, the Medicare programs, the Medicaid programs, knocked down the walls of discrimination. We brought a sound economy, a sensible foreign policy. Those are the essential values of the Democratic Party, aren't they?
I love this country. I believe in the bright light of hope and possibility. I always have, even in the darkest hours. I know what America can achieve. I've seen it. I've lived it. And with Barack Obama, we can do it again. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. This is the cause of my life. New hope. That we will break the old gridlock and guarantee that every American, north, south, east, west, young, old, will have decent, quality health care as a fundamental right and not a privilege.
Today's decision was a victory for people all over this country, whose lives will be more secure because of this law and the Supreme Court's decision to uphold it.
If Teddy were here, he would tell us now it's time to roll up our sleeves, get to work, fully implement the law, and move on with the business of our country. This one was a long time coming, and it's one that I knew my husband would have loved to have seen. Everything he did was about the future. It was about going forward. It was about passing the torch to a new generation.
Those of us who knew Teddy and worked with him here, people of both parties, know that what drove him was something more. Ted Kennedy's passion was born not of some rigid ideology, but of his own experience. That large-heartedness, that concern and regard for the plight of others is not a partisan feeling. It's not a Republican or a Democratic feeling. It too is part of the American character.
Well, I've never shied away from being called a liberal, but what I have done is stand up for my beliefs.
the work begins anew. The hope rises again, and the dream lives on.
There is the tribute to Senator Ted Kennedy.
Of course, the
this is
Kennedy.
It's the Kennedy family right there. And of course, you have a grandson who's hoping to get a seat in Congress, John Kennedy III. And then there's Patrick Kennedy there.
John Kerry, Vicky Kennedy, that's right, and of course Ted Kennedy Jr. As well, and casting President Obama as the heir to the Kennedy legacy, completing some important agenda items, really a moving tribute from a man who was a towering figure at so many of these conventions over the years. We're joined now by two people who literally need no introduction, because you probably know who they are if you're watching us. They're Diane Sawyer and George Stephanopoulos, just off the World News set, and they'll be back very soon at our ABC News special report at 10 p.m. And Diane and George, I want to dive right into it, because we have this new poll out today that has to have the Obama campaign worried for the first time, seeing women begin to turn on it. Diane, what is your take on this, and what's your sense of what could be behind it? It's just so shocking after this popularity we've seen for so long from President Obama to see women moving in the other direction.
Well, it remains to be seen what the volatility is right now. And George was saying to me earlier, and we were talking about the fact that it also shows him ahead among men in favorability, which is also something new.
That's what has everybody scratching their heads. I mean, it's you would expect that there would be some kind of a dip the week after the Republican convention, and you certainly see a dip among Republicans. But I got to tell you, when I first called the Obama campaign about this poll, the first words out of their mouth were unfathomable, impossible, anomalous, just not possible. Here's what may be arguing in their favor. It does show a dip among President Obama among women, but as you said, it shows some leading among men. You would expect to see the dip come equally among men and women after the week, but this is something they're going to have to contend with right now in this convention.
And we have to remember, back in the end of 2011, he was in a kind of statistical dead heat on women. So there has been volatility in his presidency on this, but it really was a surprise.
It was a surprise. But again, you look at it, and we talked about this on World News, you now got each convention kicked off with a little piece of history. Mitt Romney comes into his convention, lowest favorability ratings of a challenger. Barack Obama comes into his convention, lowest favorability ratings of an incumbent.
Diane, I want to talk to you about the other person who's going to be up on the stage very soon. That's Julian Castro.
Yes.
The very young 37-year-old mayor of San Antonio. You got to sit down with him today. What was he like, and how nervous is he for this stage to be compared to the president, who, of course, was a keynote speaker in 2004 as a young, relatively unknown politician?
Well, all I can say is eyes were widening, and I kept saying, how will we know if you're nervous? And he said, no, I'm nervous, okay? I'm nervous, but I'm ready. And again, he has his twin brother, his younger brother by 1 minute, coming out to introduce him, and he said that means so much to them, to think of their lives and this arc of their lives together, to be standing on that stage.
And Julian Castro, of course, speaking to Latino voters, a different kind of Latino, doesn't speak Spanish.
Although he's boning up on it, right?
And he's going to speak Spanish tonight.
He's going to test them out. Interesting. But there were so many of the rising stars we saw last week. The Democratic bench nowhere near as deep. Julian Castro, a mayor, has to be plucked for something like this.
Well, and we've seen, frankly, Latino mayors before in the Democratic Party. Henry Cisneros, mayor of San Antonio, the great rising star in the 90s, hit a roadblock. Antonio Villaraigosa, the chair of this convention, mayor of Los Angeles, also hit a bit of a roadblock. Now it's Julian Castro's turn.
I want to talk about a little bit about the video we just saw with Ted Kennedy. Obviously, it was a tribute, the passing of the torch, but they also took the opportunity to play some clips of Ted Kennedy beating up on Mitt Romney in the debates.
The
1994 debates, and going after, especially on the issue of abortion. So let's talk about a couple of things. One, where are we talked about women a little bit, but where are women in this fight now? Is that what Michelle Obama is going to do tonight? It's what Ann Romney was doing in her speech, which is to go right at women, just, I love you, women, or are we going to have to see something, we're going to see something a little bit different?
Well, the campaign has been indicating that, of course, we know President Obama. We've seen him in the White House. We know him and his family. So it's not the same frame as Mrs. Romney had coming in. It's somewhat more of what he's going to do.
And what he's done.
And what he has done. So to that extent, it's going to be a little bit more of, if not policy, a little bit more of essential purpose and less of personality, maybe.
Tying biography to the record of the last 4 years and what he'll do in the next 4 years. So in that sense, it'll be much more programmatic than Ann Romney's speech. But as you said, Barack Obama's kind of a known quantity. Where they have to change perceptions of is what happened in these last 4 years, and she's going to be trying to do that tonight.
If you're programming this convention, how important is that first night to come out strong and get people fired up night one?
You don't want to waste a minute. I mean, you've got 3 hours and 3 nights. You want to make every single minute count, and that is exactly the way they're looking at it, programming in a way so it'll be hard for us to turn away, hard for the viewers to turn away. One thing I am going to be watching, we did see last week that the numbers were off, I guess, about 30% overall on the Republican convention, which is one of the reasons it doesn't appear there's been much of a bounce.
Viewership,
yeah. Will we see the same thing this week for Barack Obama and the Democrats, or is he kind of lucky in that people are back to school, back to work, back to their normal lives?
To football.
Well, that's tomorrow night, yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And Bill Clinton's going to be watching that clock. I'm not going out there until the game is over, right?
Wait for that moment, exactly.
And speaking of that, I know, Diane, you were on a panel this morning talking to the Obama campaign, the campaign manager in particular, and you asked them that question is, how confident are you going to fill that 75,000-seat stadium? What did you think of the response?
Well, it was, we're going to fill the stadium, every seat. We're going to fill the stadium. So that's a lot of seats to fill. And if there's rain, if there's lightning, we're still waiting to see what the plan is.
I got to say, I don't understand why they did it. I think it was setting themselves up for exactly the comparison they don't necessarily want
from 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Easy to say, just we're going to rein it in a little bit,
yeah.
and just go right, nice stage right behind us that's already built and everything. Diane, I want to bring you back to the Julian Castro interview because I know we have a clip prepared for it as well. We're seeing really the birth of a potential star, so similar to the Obama biography when you come down to it.
It's incredible. He has a single mother, and of course his grandmother immigrated here from Mexico. She taught herself English. She worked as a maid. She worked as a babysitter. And then there were 2 sons, not just one, but 2 sons who first went to Stanford and then on to Harvard Law School. It is an incredible American story.
Take a look at the clip.
How will we know if you're nervous?
Well, I can guarantee you that I'm going to be nervous, but I think when I get up there, I'll be ready.
Barack Obama, 2004. Did you watch him?
Oh, I watched all of them. Yeah, no, I'm the third Texan. Ann Richards and Congresswoman Barbara Jordan gave a groundbreaking speech.
And the first Hispanic.
Yeah, the first Hispanic. So it feels like a great opportunity. I'm very honored. At the same time, I'm going to be me. I'm not going to try and live up to folks that are in a different league. A lot of folks have asked about President Obama's 2004 speech. He's a person of unique ability and talent. I'm going to be myself. And if I do a good job and I'm myself and I speak from the heart, it'll resonate with folks.
A very young looking.
Very young looking. As we know, President Obama made a joke about it in a meeting with him, saying he thought he was an intern, jokingly.
All right, we'll see more from that star tonight.
Okay.
Diane Sawyer and George Stephanopoulos,
thanks
for joining. Thanks for stopping by.
Of
course, 10 o'clock on the network, on the ABC television network. They'll be taking all the action tonight and all nights. We'll be here throughout the action, 7 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Again, you can watch us at abcnews.com, at Yahoo News, also at YouTube's politics site, and of course, on the various mobile devices, including the iPad. We're going to be live streaming. If you want to watch the speeches, you can watch them. If you want to watch terrific guests, you can watch us. And we're having a good time here. Hashtag into the DNC 2012 at Rick Klein and at Amy E. Walter.
And of course, you can also turn your television on while you have those other screens on. We know you're multitasking right now anyway. You might as well just go full out and do that.
Amy, before we go away from it, just a quick note. I'm curious to see the fallout of that Kennedy tribute video, because I think it was moving and you had some terrific moments there. But the use of that Romney campaign footage, I wonder if people are going to be asking exactly what was going on with that.
But remember, that was for this hall, not for the general audience. And for this hall, they loved it. So I think that's what people are going to be talking about much more than whether or not it turned off swing voters who thought that it was inappropriate to use a tribute video to make a political attack. But joining us now, we got a big guest here, literally and figuratively. You can't tell that he is probably 17 feet taller than I am, but
not
15 feet. All right, Reggie Love, who of course worked for President Obama, was by his side for many years now, off in business school. You're at Wharton, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm doing my MBA at the Wharton School of Business at University of Pennsylvania.
So what's more stressful, really, the business school or the White House, right? Business school, yeah.
I mean, look, if my classmates, there's a lot of analysis of the state of the economy with a lot of my classmates, so it can be a little stressful in some of these classes, but I don't think it quite compares with the stress and the schedule of working for the United States president.
Now, you've been behind the scenes with President Obama before some pretty big speeches in the man's career. What is it like being back there? What is he like? What's his body language? What's his demeanor as he's about to go in and give a major address that's going to be viewed by so many million people?
I always look at it, it's a combination of the calm before the storm, very, very quiet, very sort of focused, and almost like it's almost like a basketball player or a boxer before he goes out for a match, and all you're thinking about is going out and executing on the task at hand. And there have been a lot of big moments, from the last Democratic National Convention in Denver to the many joint addresses to Congress, to the election day in Grant Park. So they're all great. It's really an amazing thing to get the chance to be a part of.
So how hard is it for you, truly, to not be there as the re-election campaign is swinging into high gear?
I told Diane and I told George, I wake up every morning and I'm miserable that I'm not out there with my comrades sort of in battle. But I do think that there's a part of me that wakes up not as tired.
Only
actually,
a part of you?
The part of you that went to sleep, so you could wake up, right?
Exactly.
So what is the mood among the team right now? Among this Obama team, it's such a close-knit team. A lot of the folks still together from 2008. How are they feeling going into this, knowing that they've got these 2 months now that's going to be such a major judgment on their work of the last 4 years?
I think you guys have probably seen. This is a big moment for the American people, and I think that the entire team understands what's at stake. And I think as we look forward to Election Day in November, we want to do the best job possible to make sure that people are energized about going out to vote and making sure people know what are the issues that are at stake for this election.
Tell us, too, a little bit about what it's like at Wharton. You said you're talking about economics. I think of Wharton maybe as a little more conservative. I don't know if you get that sense, but are you finding yourself...
I do go to class in Huntsman Hall, so just so you know.
Okay, so done and done. All right, so do you find yourself then getting into fights, like having to defend the president's economic policies with your own classmates?
Well, I think that, it's very easy at times for people to make the assumption that they understand every single dynamic of government when you've worked 5 years at Goldman Sachs. It's like they know they basically know TARP, and then that's really about it. And so it's nice to be able to inform people sometimes about all the different things that the president has done in terms of the Lilly Ledbetter Act for equal pay, equal work, in terms of all the different things he's done for education and expanding Pell Grants, and a lot of things that kind of maybe go out of sort of the socioeconomic demographic of some of my classmates.
And it must be an interesting real-life experience you bring to it. I mean, you learn about public policy. You actually see it getting made right there, a front row seat.
Yeah. I tell everyone, my family, my friends, at age, I'm 30 years old, and I literally feel like I've seen history been made over and over again. And I've only had that chance because this president has really been on the forefront of doing what he believes is right for this country. So I'm blessed to have had the opportunity.
So, do you still come in and play pickup with the president?
We have a pretty competitive game still.
But you have to go 60%? Honestly, come on.
I've said this before. There's nothing worse than losing to the president. There have been times where, and he's been campaigning, so he's busy. So if you play once a month and you lose, you have to live with that. For another 30 days.
He's 50 and you're 30. I mean, that's really bad.
Yeah, he doesn't play with a bunch of 50-year-olds, though.
All right, fair enough.
The other oldest guy is Arnie Duncan, and I think he's 44. So
are you allowed to dunk on the president?
If the opportunity came, I think he would most likely get out of the way. But
he doesn't want to be on the poster.
But don't forget, I got a lot of miles on these wheels, so there's not a lot of dunking going on anymore.
All right, Reggie Love. Any truth and rumor you're going to try out for the Charlotte Bobcats? I hear they need a lot of help. What do you think while you're in town playing for Michael Jordan?
I'm a hometown Charlotte native, so I'm not going to speak. I think the Bobcats have a lot of room for growth.
Oh, there you go.
It's a rebuilding year.
It's a rebuilding year.
Sounds like a future in diplomacy, Reggie.
Michael, I think Kit Gilchrist is going to be good. I think he's going to be great, and I've got a couple Duke teammates, Gerald Henderson and Corey Maggette are here, so I think they're going to be okay. But Michael Jordan doesn't need my help, man. He needs someone younger and better than me.
Talk about guys you don't want to lose to. All right, make sure you sign in on the iPad on the way out. We want a drawing. We want creativity. Show us something great, all right?
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot, Reggie Love.
Thanks a lot, Reggie.
All right, right now we're going to go down to the floor of the convention where Jon Karl has caught up with Jesse Jackson. John.
I'm here with Reverend Jackson. As you mentioned, Reverend Jackson, you have spoken at 6 of these conventions. What's this one like?
Well, it's to be in North Carolina and South Carolina, what a great break. This is the New South, made possible by the Voting Rights Act. When the walls came down, bridges were built. It connected Mason and Dixon. You could never have Carolina Panthers and the Bobcats behind the cotton curtain. You couldn't have had the Olympics in Atlanta behind that cotton curtain. You couldn't have had Honda and Toyota and Boeing and Airbus. But this civil rights movement has been successful here, and the right to vote is the key to it and must be protected at all costs.
But what about President Obama? Is he going to be able to recapture that same magic? I mean, it's like he has said, that was lightning in a bottle 4 years ago. There's a lot of disappointment out there. There's a lot of people going through tough times. How does he do it?
Well, that was a crusade, and now he is governing, but look at what he has to govern with. He came in with 4 million jobs lost. Now 4 million gained. That's a spread of 8 million jobs, for example. The automotive industry was going. Even we thought Germans and Japanese made superior cars. We know better now. We're number one again, working 3 shifts in Ohio. There are people covered with health insurance who were not covered before. That's a plus. 100,000 troops out of Iraq. That's a big deal. We spent $1 to $3 trillion on that war, the wrong war, and so he has a track record, and I think that track record of substance will sustain him through the season.
But you heard the president himself when he was asked to give himself a grade on his handling of the economy, and he said incomplete. I mean, how do you go to voters and say, I've had 3.5 years, but my grade is incomplete?
Well, he's been modest. You have to deal with what he has done, the opposition he has had, the name calling, the toxic attacks on this person. You're not an American. You're not a Christian. You're not one of us. And look at the alternative. There is no alternative program for economic reconstruction or in the commitment to address poverty. I think that when he is toe-to-toe with his opposition, one will be able to make a contrast that would give him the edge.
Hey, I want to ask you an entirely different question as somebody who's been to so many of these conventions and played a big role in so many of them. Are they still relevant? You hear a lot of people saying, it's become one big kind of infomercial. Well, what's your sense? Why do these things still matter, or do you think they do?
It connects people from around the country. They're not as contentious as they once were. You will not be here at midnight negotiating between various groups trying to figure who the candidates will be. But the purpose of coming together, sharing issues, whether you're in California or Alabama or Vermont or Mississippi, there are certain common interests you have. People you get to know. I mean, Medicare, Medicaid, public education, peace, these issues bind us. I think the convention serves a useful purpose, and it must continue.
Hey, how's Jesse Jr. doing?
He is doing better. He is slowly regaining, but he must prioritize his health and let nothing become before his health. We love him so much. We're so caught off guard by what happened to him. He's recovering, and we want him to take his time.
Have you been out to see him?
Well, several times, once a week at least.
Once a week, and what's your sense? When do we see him back in the arena?
I just don't know. I don't want to hazard a guess. I mean, I'm fathering this, not medical advisor. I think his doctors and families at some point in time, he must make that decision as to whether he can continue to serve. But his physical and emotional strength must take priority.
All right.
I want to thank some of them who prayed for him. Pastor Kendrick came to visit him, and Dennis Kucinich and friends came to visit him. And I thank them for their help and support. And much love is shown for him here. It makes our family feel very good.
All right. Well, my best to him, and please give him back. Jesse, thank you for joining us down here.
Thank you, sir.
There's from who's random few of these. Are you with me, Rick?
All right, thanks for that. Thanks for that, John Carl. Appreciate it. In the middle of the action, they are very interesting. We're going to hop over to ABC's Cokie Roberts, also on the convention floor. Cokie, give us a lay of the land from your perspective.
Please welcome Colorado Congressman Jared Polis.
Maybe we don't.
Cokie, do you have us? All right, we'll try to hit Cokie. We'll try to hit Cokie again in a moment.
Yeah, you know, she's right up there, so right in the middle of it all, she can give us a great perspective. But right now, we have joining us from our friend and partner, our sister, I guess, Univision.
Something like
Leon
that.
Cruz, not related to Tom Cruise.
No.
But
as of yet.
But it is the same. It's the same pronunciation. We talked to Diane Sawyer a little bit ago about her interview with Julian Castro, what she thought about him. I know you all have interviewed him, talked with him. Tell me what you think his speech is going to be like today, and what you think about him as a future political superstar. There are some people even talking about him running for president.
Well, I was with the Texas delegation this morning. I was at their very large, peculiar hotel. And, yeah.
There are a lot of peculiar hotels here.
Both things are true. And I found them to be really inspired by Castro's figure. All of them, people who have known him since he was a child, talk about him as really this great hope for the party and for Latino politicians and for Latinos in general. I can't imagine the pressure this guy is feeling right now. Must be terrible. He'll probably talk about his story. When you have a story like Julian does, you have to talk about his story. Politics is about narrative. His narrative is fantastic. The grandmother, orphan, immigrant, arriving in this country. The mother, and a political activist, widely respected. Him and his twin brother. I mean, it's really a wonderful story, and I'm betting that he's gonna just lay it out for the world to listen to it and to value a figure like Julian, who is quite impressive in many ways, I think.
Does it matter to the Latino community that he's not comfortable speaking in Spanish, that he's learning Spanish? It's an interesting biographical detail because so much of white America, the rest of America, learns of him as a Latino politician, but he doesn't speak Spanish.
I don't think it's an issue, honestly. I think that in this country, assimilation is a big factor of the success of this country historically, and to not speak Spanish is not a big issue. I mean, we wouldn't expect a German American politician to go out there and say "Ich bin ein Berliner" or something like that, no? So I don't think it would or should be an issue when you think of Julian's political career. This is the biggest night of his life, especially when people think about what a keynote address can do to a politician. We talked about this in Tampa, how in many instances a keynote speech is just that, nothing. Doesn't lead anywhere, but there are other instances when people with great narratives, great stories can go places. Let's put it that way.
They
no?
can. And there was one in 2000 that he went somewhere. He did okay.
Just 8 years it took him, no? And by the way, that guy that you're talking about, when in 2004 was in a much lower place, politically speaking, than Julian, who's already the mayor of a big town. So, I mean, he has a bright future ahead of him, but the pressure must be mounting on him tonight. Huh?
Absolutely.
All right, Leon, we're going to check in with you throughout the week.
Please.
Thanks for being here. Our friends and partners at Univision, you've signed in. You
That's
found
right.
Yes. Oh.
You found multiple colors on the palette.
I didn't know that.
You didn't even do that. Show it up. Show for the
Put it
camera.
right there. there.
All right, that is our
Where is
partnership.
it?
Exactly. Well done, Leon, so much.
There you go.
And he found the colors. Well,
Absolutely.
I am impressed. I'm impressed.
The man who found the
And
colors.
then you can put a heart there.
I will.
All right.
We're going to hop down to the floor again. We're going to check in with ABC's Koki Roberts, who is trolling for stories and hanging out with the delegates down there. Koki, what is the buzz on the convention floor?
Well, actually, Rick, I am on the podium, so my perspective is
Whoa,
exactly
look
the
at her.
same as that of the
Wow.
speakers.
Wow,
So yes, I mean, if you want, I'll make a speech. But that is very useful because I can see the crowd the way they can see the crowd. I can also see the teleprompter and tell you what they're about to say next. But the crowd is really very, very up and with it and enthusiastic. They most liked seeing the video of the late Senator Kennedy debating Mitt Romney for the Senate. That had them very energized. But they're up. This is a crowd ready to go. I must say that. Julian Castro is going to, I think he'll probably have a little bit of a clong when he does walk out here as a very young mayor and see this crowd. But fortunately, he has his twin brother with him, so that'll probably help. You know, we'll have a little double vision up here on the podium in a bit tonight. But they have, the difference with this convention, and it's been true for several Democratic and Republican conventions lately, is that the diversity also exists on the floor, not just on the podium, and that is the case.
Koki, we talked a little
We
bit
have
with
the president-
Diane and George. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, yep, there he is,
Go ahead.
right behind you. It's like the president and you are together at the same time. It's unbelievable. Okay. Also, did you notice behind you there were mountains?
But he's talking
so it
about
looks like
women,
you're
so
up in
it's
the-
appropriate.
It is appropriate. So let's talk about that for a minute. Our new poll that came out today, George and Diane talking about this a few minutes ago. Favorable ratings among the president dropping. George noted that the poll looks a little bit odd in that his numbers among men went up. But I want to talk to you specifically, though, about Romney's numbers. And that is, he seems to be improving a little bit among women. And even though he's not getting a bounce, the Romney campaign telling me they just want to see an improvement in the favorable ratings. What's your sense from coming out of the convention that whether or not Mitt Romney was able to bring women over to see a different side of him? Do you think there was some success in that?
It appears that there is a sense that he is more acceptable to women after that convention. Look, the bar was low, Amy. They just had to not seem very scary, and they didn't seem very scary. But you know what has really surprised me since the Republican convention is how blindsided the Democrats seem to have been by the main message of that convention, which was, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Now, what were they expecting? But it's taken them several days to get their talking points together on that, and they still are bumbling around with the president giving himself an incomplete. So I think that they need to get that in much better shape before Thursday night. Now, I think that we will certainly hear from the First Lady tonight the contrast, and I think that that's a huge part of what this convention is going to be about, is contrast with Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. But I think that they really, that it's surprising to me that this campaign, which is so good about messages and staying on message, really didn't get that message of how to respond to the better off question.
All right, ABC's Koki Roberts in one of the best seats in the house, maybe better than ours. You see ours up there. Ours is pretty good, but Koki
much better than yours.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Koki.
Okay. All right, we're joined now by Sunlen Miller, ABC's own. Of course, we covered the 2008 Obama campaign and is busy around town today. Sunlen, what have you been finding out? You've been talking to a lot of folks.
We've been talking to a lot of folks around Charlotte, and I have a lot of facts for you guys that you never thought you would want, but I'm going to share them with you.
No. We love it.
Here's the first fun fact. In Charlotte, scenes from the movie The Hunger Games were filmed here. The place where delegates and media worked all week at the Charlotte Convention Center, that was where the pivotal scene in the Hunger Games. Not sure if you've seen it,
Haven't
Amy.
seen it. Haven't seen it yet.
It's a pivotal scene where all the tributes ride in on their chariots. Katniss is flaming with fire behind her. This is where the media worked all week. It looks a lot different here in the pictures
It does
that
not
you're
look very
seeing.
scary there.
It's definitely not Hunger
scary.
Games. Draw your own comparison. But the second thing I want to tell you about is the number 60. Now, you would think this is polling or approval rating, but the White House is listening very closely to the number 60 and everything about it because that's the weather forecast, the percentage of rain on Thursday night. Now, we all know that Barack Obama is going to deliver his speech on Thursday night in an open-air arena. So obviously, they're watching the weather reports very closely. As of now, they have not announced a contingency plan if it does rain. There's over 73,000 people potentially coming out to listen to that address. So we'll see what happens if it does rain.
Those are all good. Now, we also understand you found some other fun facts about Charlotte, things that we didn't know about Charlotte.
Well, one thing that we didn't know about Charlotte is on the streets here, everyone is buzzing about a potential mystery guest that might show up here. People are buzzing about Betty White. Now, of course, we all know from the Republicans convention that famous mystery guest was Clint Eastwood. He got a lot more attention for his empty chair on the stage. But we hit the streets of Charlotte today. We talked to a few delegates out there. We asked them if Betty White would be a good person to come and make an appearance at the convention. We have a little bit of sound from people on the streets.
You know, I've heard a rumor, and I'd love to see Betty White. I think she'd be very funny, sort of a nice contrast with Clint Eastwood, a little more practiced at comedy.
Betty is the ultimate young, older person. Okay, I give her credit for that all the way. But then you have a large group of people. I don't know how surprising she would be to, say, my younger children.
Betty White's fine. She'll be a hell of a lot better than Clint Eastwood.
And that's a lot of what we heard from people on the streets. They said anyone but Clint Eastwood, just anyone but him.
Literally the word on the street. Sunlen Miller, our ABC correspondent, our ABC colleague and friend. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Sunlen. Oh, and then...
Well done.
Well done, Sunlen. Well said. Next time, you got to draw your home state.
We'll make you do it.
We'll make you do that next time.
All right, thank you, Sunlen.
Thanks, guys.
It is interesting, we've been asking, of course, about any surprises. What we've heard over and over again from the Democrats, no Clint Eastwood, none of that. We're not going anywhere near it. We're not going to go anywhere near the idea of Clint Eastwood because that was viewed as kind of a polarizing thing last week.
Well, and listen, I think that the Democrats know that they have just 3 days to get their message out. They don't want to risk anything, messing with that. More important, as Sunlen pointed out, it's the rain that's the bigger issue for Democrats right now. That could be the surprise guest that they definitely don't want to see.
You said something about a surprise guest and messing with Democrats. I think our next guest knows a little something about those topics. The former governor of New Hampshire, very high-profile Romney surrogate, John Sununu, joins us here in the booth. And I got to ask you, first of all, do you feel like a rock star all of a sudden? I feel like you're on cable all the time. You've become like one of the it boys of politics.
I'm just doing my job.
Just doing the job. Well, is it dangerous walking around out there? We asked Democrats that last week. Do people recognize you?
I came in with a mustache and a small nose.
So you got by there. Now we're gonna have to get you out with we have Groucho Marx glasses for you to get you through there.
I know.
All right, so let's go through the back and forth that's been going on, certainly from Democrats up here, saying that the Republican convention, David Plouffe saying it was built on a tripod of lies. They continue to go after the Janesville comments by Paul Ryan.
Look,
and
you want to do Janesville? Let's do
Janesville.
Janesville.
Let's do it.
December 2008, the plant started to be closed. Finished closed April 2009. Obama's there during the campaign prior to November 2008, says no matter what, this plant is going to stay open for a century. No matter what. He became president. He became the largest stockholder in GM, right? If he wanted to keep it open after January 21st, 2009, he could have. He broke his promise. All this garbage you are hearing as they try and dance some kind of a twisting of words makes no sense at all. The president made a commitment. He broke it.
How come it seemed to take a little bit long to get this defense of the plant closing?
You didn't invite me. You didn't invite me.
Were you surprised? Was it that nobody thought that was going to be attacked in the speech?
Nobody could imagine the guy would deny something that is so obvious.
What did Paul Ryan do for the ticket from your perspective? We've seen the polling. Doesn't look like there's huge bounce, but has it changed the internal perspective on this? Are you seeing something that maybe we're not?
Look, this is not bounce time. In spite of histories of conventions, you get a bounce in June and July convention. This is September. This is ooze time. You're going to see the polls ooze down for Obama and ooze up for Romney. And it's going to be a short step at a time kind of thing. There's not going to be big bounces up and down.
All right, let's talk about your home state. The president choosing the Granite State.
Yeah.
And where to go right after this convention.
Shows how
Number one state. So what does that say about New Hampshire?
The president's going, the vice president's going, Mrs. Obama's going, Mrs. Biden's going. It shows you they're wetting their pants over New Hampshire. They're scared stiff.
4 whole electoral votes, too.
Yeah.
You go all over it.
New Hampshire will go for Romney 2.5 to 3 points.
2.5 to 3 points.
Write it down. Write it down.
I'm going to write it right now.
What did you think? Did you get a chance to see the Ted Kennedy tribute video?
No, I did not.
They used some of the old debate clips, 1994 Romney clips. They played actually a good chunk of it. Do you think that's appropriate in this context?
Oh, sure. It's better than them lying all over the place. You got them come out. They're not even smart enough to lie about things that can't be checked. The other day, Stephanie Cutter says, we created more jobs in the 2 years of our recovery than Ronald Reagan did in his 2 years. Well, if you Google that, it takes about 38 seconds to find out that Reagan created about 7.5 million jobs. They created 4. Now, maybe she doesn't know that 7.5 is bigger than 4 million.
Sounds like you're going to help her figure that out.
Yeah, I know that's...
Yeah.
So, all right, so you say it's ooze time and not bounce time.
Right.
Do you get a sense that this race is going to shift at some point? Is it the debates? What is the moment that we're going to see something?
It's in time. Look, I've said it a few times this past week and a half. A presidential campaign is like a basketball game. In a basketball game, it's the last 2 minutes. In a presidential campaign, it's the last 2 months. A great deal of America, maybe half, does not participate in this process until the kids go back to school. They've gone back, Labor Day plus or minus a week. Now they're going to worry about their kids not having a job, the grandkids not having a job, the mother, the father, the uncle, the grand. This is when people start assessing their own personal answer to the question, are you better than you were before Obama came into office? And I think people are going to clearly give the answer that the polls are showing. 70% of America says they are not better off. 40% of America says this president does not deserve to be reelected. That's what's going to decide November.
All right, and the Democrats push back and say, that's fine and all, but what's the Romney plan? He didn't give us anything specific at his own convention. He talked a lot about how bad things were under Barack Obama, but not how they'd be better.
What the president doesn't understand is that this idea of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is what has scared the death out of the private sector. They're sitting with more cash in the private sector, businesses, for investment than they have ever had. They're watching the November election. The biggest thing to stimulate growth is to defeat Barack Obama. Those people will take their investment out of the country if he's reelected. And if Romney's reelected, they'll buy the machinery and start the hiring, and you'll see the biggest growth path. The Mitt Romney package of tax reform, of really getting America to utilize its domestic energies, not with the words you hear from these guys, but the real utilization, shale gas, coal, oil, nuclear, alternatives. That's what this country is waiting for. The minute they see a president's going to do that, this country's back on track.
You think they start moving again? All right, John Sununu, the former governor of New Hampshire. I need to get you on camera on this. Do you have the best baseball card collection in New Hampshire? If
I
not,
have the
who
best.
beats you?
I have, I think, the best baseball card collection in New Hampshire, but that's because I'm old and kept my old baseball cards.
That counts. That counts.
I want to have a baseball
come
card
see it.
off.
Come
right
see
here.
it.
You got it. It's going to be a stop on the campaign trail as far as I'm
Good.
concerned. We need you to sign in on our iPad before you head out. Draw something. We'll give it to you on the way out. Draw something. Draw your counter messaging and we'll make sure
Thank you.
It gets preserved. Thank you, Governor
Thank you
Sununu.
for having
Really
me.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
One of the more remarkable developments of this campaign cycle, I'll say, with Governor Sununu walking away here, has been the rise of John Sununu
Yes.
as a cable pundit and talking head and all the rest.
I mean, wetting your pants. I don't think we have officially never heard that on this live stream. And in fact, I don't know that I've ever had a candidate say that to me.
No, that's new. That's good that he's not running for anything, I suppose.
It is. All right. We're going to change gears just a little bit. to talk about that other branch of government, Congress.
Yes.
And joining us right now, Guy Cecil, who's the executive director of the DSCC, Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. You got a lot of work to do. You got a lot of seats to defend. Obviously, everybody's talking about one race right now, and that's Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Though I understand from some of our reporters that we had at a briefing you held today, or that someone held today that you were speaking at, that you said that you expect Missouri to be competitive.
I do.
Republicans say it's gone.
I do.
And why is that?
Well, first of all, let me say that I really enjoyed listening to Governor Sununu. I never thought I would hear the words ooze and wetting your pants in the same 90 seconds. So
they were not officially together.
No.
To be fair.
No,
All right.
I don't want to misrepresent his. I don't want PolitiFact coming after me, accusing me of lying. Look, I think the fact is that Missouri is a culturally conservative state. Particularly when you get into southern Missouri. And we've seen some polling come out of that race in the last couple of weeks, and I do expect it to be a relatively close race. There's no question that what Todd Akin said is inexcusable. But it's also true that in the polling that we've seen, there's only been a slight movement in our direction, and we fully expect to prosecute the case there, not only against Todd, but against Claire McCaskill, and we're going to make sure she has the resources to do it.
Where is Claire McCaskill this week, and why isn't she at this convention?
She's in Missouri, which, from our point of view, is exactly where she should be. I mean, when we talk to our candidates, we tell them you have two options this week. You can be in Missoula, Montana. You can be in Springfield, Missouri, or you can listen to John Legend. And while John Legend and the Roots might be a little more fun, in these close elections, our candidates should really be talking to the voters that are in their states. We have more races within single digits in this election cycle than at any point in the last decade. And it's something we take very seriously.
Okay, and I'm going to give you a little bit of credit here, Guy. When I talked to you, it was probably a year ago, you said watch Indiana.
Yep.
And right now we have the polls showing a dead heat in Indiana.
Yeah.
All right, so how do you hold on when you know what this is going to be tough, top of the ticket, Romney's expected to win? Why should we not expect that, as has been the case now for the past few cycles, as the state goes at the federal level, so goes the Senate?
Sure. Well, look, I think the Senate has proven itself over the course of time to be about campaigns that define the two individuals that are on the race. And I think it's true not just in Indiana. I mean, you look at North Dakota. Mitt Romney is expected to win, and yet Heidi Heitkamp leads in our internal polls. You look at Montana, where Mitt Romney is expected to win. John Tester in our last poll is up 4 to 5 points. So I think this is true not only in Indiana, but in a lot of races. But look, Indiana is the quintessential example of the Tea Party deciding that they wanted to choose who was going to be their nominee, and they did. And they chose a candidate who believes, in his words, that the problem in Washington is that we have too much bipartisanship. Now, this is a pretty partisan crowd. I don't think you'll find many people that think the problem in Washington is that there's too much bipartisanship. And that's what this race is really about. The other thing I would note about Joe Donnelly, that Joe was the very first House Democrat last cycle who was targeted by ads by the Republican Party. And in the worst election cycle in 75 years for Democrats, in a Republican district, he won. And so we are very excited about this race, and all of the public and private polling shows it to be a margin of error race.
So, Guy, you entered the cycle knowing that you were going to be playing a lot of defense. That 2006 map is so difficult. What is your overall sense of how much the presidential race does matter in terms of control of the Senate? Do you think it could be a tipping point one way or the other? Or does it really just depend on the state?
I think it does depend on the state. Look, there are a lot of races where Mitt Romney is expected to win, but I would also point out we have a lot of races on the map where the president is expected to win. In Hawaii, he's expected to win by 40 points. In New Mexico, where my counterparts at the Republican Senatorial Committee just pulled their television in the fall, where Martin Heinrich is now expected to win. And, of course, in Massachusetts. I mean, everyone's going to get a chance to hear what we love about Elizabeth Warren tomorrow night. And it's a race where the president will win by double digits, where 800,000 more people will turn out in this election than they did when Scott Brown ran. And we're very optimistic about that race. So we are very focused on not just defending our folks, but on playing offense in a lot of these Republican states.
So can I talk to you then about that Massachusetts Senate race for a minute? If this is the kind of environment where good candidates can win despite the top of the ticket, if a Heidi Heitkamp can win in North Dakota, why can't Scott Brown win in Massachusetts?
Because Scott Brown is all about personality. Heidi Heitkamp is about substance. Heidi Heitkamp is grounded in North Dakota. The most amazing thing about Heidi Heitkamp is she has not run for office in almost 12 years. Her name ID is 90%, and she is more liked than disliked, which in this age of politics is a really hard thing to come by. The fact is that Scott Brown is focused on wearing a barn coat, driving a pickup truck, and talking about the Boston Red Sox. And while I have nothing against any of those three things, he is out of step with Massachusetts.
He has a lot of things against the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, that's a point of personal pride, but not this year. I won't pile on at the very least. But you think the personality doesn't trump in that case?
No, I don't. I just think he's completely out of step. He votes against the Democratic, he votes with, I should say, his own party 75-80% of the time. I think you would be hard-pressed to find many voters in Massachusetts that believe Mitch McConnell is right 80% of the time. And the more people are hearing about Elizabeth Warren, I would remind folks that a year ago, when we were looking at this race, folks were saying, you can't win, you're down 15 points, this isn't going to happen. And we're going into the fall in a margin of error race in a state the president's expected to win. So we're excited about the race, and I'm excited to hear from Elizabeth Warren tomorrow night. I think she's going to be great.
Okay, for all of us who are going to be up late on election night,
Yes.
wondering which way the Senate is going to go, tell us the 2 or 3 states that decide control of the Senate.
I hope it is just late that night. I've been through a couple that were decided the next day.
Yeah, you're right. When was the last time we didn't have a recount in a Senate race? It's been a long time.
It's been a while. You know, on the Friday after the election, I have tickets to the Florida Gators, Georgetown basketball game on the aircraft carrier in Jacksonville, Florida. So my only wish is that this election is decided by Thursday after Election Day. But I would give you 2. I think Massachusetts and Virginia. I think the Massachusetts race obviously is an opportunity for us to pick up a seat, and thus creating a higher bar for the Republicans. And I think Virginia is a classic bellwether state. It's a targeted race in the presidential race, and I think Tim Kaine has a real opportunity to exceed the presidential vote in that state. So if you told me how those 2 are going to go, I would feel a lot more comfortable about my job in the next 60.
That's right. You've got those tickets ready to go. All right,
Yes.
Guy Cecil, Executive Director of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. We so appreciate you being with
Thanks
us here.
for having me. Appreciate
Don't forget
it.
to sign in on the iPad. I want
will.
a drawing, want a doodle, want something, want some personality. Give
All
us
right.
some life.
I'll do my very best.
All right.
You can draw the basketball game.
Yes.
You can do that, the aircraft carrier.
Pressure's on.
Done.
Okay, Amy, we've been talking so much about 2008. Here's the road that Barack Obama tread to bring him to that prominence. An incredible journey where 8 years ago at a gathering just like this, he was a virtual unknown. He was Julian Castro, and now he's the President of the United States running for re-election. But take a look.
The next senator from the state of Illinois, Barack Obama. Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. Tonight, we gather to affirm the greatness of our nation. Not because of the height of our skyscrapers or the power of our military or the size of our economy. Our pride is based on a very simple premise, summed up in a declaration made over 200 years ago. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the true genius of America.
Well, there we have a picture, of course, of Mr. and Mrs. Obama, the President and the First Lady. And, of course, tonight we're going to be hearing a lot about the First Lady. And joining us to talk about the expectations for that speech, Holly Bailey, from our partner, Yahoo News. We're hearing a lot about what to expect. She's going to be making the case for him as a partner in this, that the credibility piece of this. What else do you think that she's going to be able to do, not just in this hall, but to those voters sitting out there who are still sort of ambivalent about this race?
I think her role is not unlike what we saw with Ann Romney last week. She's really trying to humanize President Obama, and it seems weird because so many people talk about, he's loose, he's a loose president, he sort of identifies with people more, but there is an element of him that's sort of back off, sort of coldish, and so I think she's going to try to more humanize him and make the case for why he needs another 4 years to continue his legacy.
Holly, we just saw the pictures. I can't help but notice the difference in the hair, the difference in the demeanor. What is your sense of how the Obama camp is trying to calibrate their expectations? It was such a major moment 4 years ago, 8 years ago. I mean, two of the most memorable speeches in political history. He's going back out there in the open air, maybe in the rain on Thursday night, and got to do it all over again.
Yeah, we were both there at the Newsmakers event today, in which, it really struck me, just sort of the difference in the enthusiasm and sort of how on edge the Obama staff was today in describing what the speech is going to be on Thursday. He'll be out there rain and shine, and they really weren't really talking about specifically what he's going to say. So, it is a huge role to fill. Everyone's going to be likening it to that.
You guys know the Obama campaign, all right? They are not going to put something in a stadium and not fill it. It doesn't matter what it would take, but that thing will be filled. I expect that it will be filled. I guess the question is, in terms of the optics of this, do we think that really they're going to surprise us maybe a little bit? Instead of it being the columns and all of the drama, it's going to be much more toned down, and it's going to be a speech that looks maybe very different from Denver, not just in tone but in substance.
I think it has to be. I mean, no question, because this is a different period. It's a different situation than it was, and people are not as pumped up as they were 4 years ago, and the country is struggling a little bit more. People are out of work. I don't think they want to have, the optics of a huge celebration going on when so many people are struggling.
Right. And as well as the idea that everything's just great and lovely, and that the future is going to be so bright when a whole bunch of people still feel like the future is really uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
All right, exactly. All right, we'll be watching it all with our partners at Yahoo. We appreciate you so much, Holly Bailey, for joining us here. And again, we're going to be streaming all week long. It's abcnews.com, Yahoo News. Keep the conversation going on Twitter at the hashtag DNC2012. Holly Bailey, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, I think Holly makes a good point. I mean, in some ways, you can't hope to try to recreate what they did 4 years ago. You have to change some major things about it, because otherwise we're all going to be making the comparison.
Well, and that's why I said I think the expectation should not be, are they going to fill it, or are they not going to fill it? It should be much more on, what is he going to say that looks like he is doing two things, which is, one, they keep talking about forward, looking forward, being optimistic, and at the same time being realistic about what has happened in his past with his own decisions that he made, as well as the reality where most Americans come from. So he's going to have to rebut the case that Mitt Romney made against him, which was, hey guys, hey America, it's okay, you were disappointed in him, it's time to turn away. He has to say, you know what, maybe you were a little disappointed because things didn't move as quickly as you thought they would, or they didn't happen in the way you thought they would, but I'm going to deliver. And what we heard today at our Newsmakers conference from the Obama campaign is, they said, you're going to walk away from that speech knowing exactly how the president's going to move forward in his second term. That, I think, is the other bar that he's going to need to reach. Advantage
or disadvantage for going second, do you think, in the context like this? What do you think it's better off being second batting cleanup, or better off going first and being the first one out there? You get a clean slate. You get to just go out there and say, this is what I stand for.
Yeah, personally, I would always love to be able to hit cleanup, right? Because you always get to respond, you get to put your own story out there, and quite frankly, you know that the debate's going to engage immediately. But as you and I have talked about already, the big issue that's going to come up right after his speech, it's not what Mitt Romney's going to say, it's what the jobs report is going to say, and that is a very, very dicey situation for the Democrats potentially.
All right, we're pleased to be joined by Sandra Fluck, who has had one of the oddest careers in politics or in the political spotlight than one can imagine, just thrust into a sort of fame when Rush Limbaugh decided to take her on the radio program. I want to ask you, first of all, what has it been like walking around this convention? People recognize you? Or it's like you're a celebrity in these worlds.
Well, there are a lot of people who've been very kind and have expressed support and do stop me on the street, and it's just really nice to hear from them. I always appreciate that.
So your life, tell us how your life has changed since this moment that you became this figure, and are you able to have just your normal day-to-day existence?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I do definitely. But I'm still working on the same policies that I've always cared about. I just have a slightly bigger microphone now.
Slightly. In this case, you have a microphone on your head.
Exactly.
Which is what we do here.
Yeah.
We're very old school. So let's talk about. We know we're going to hear a lot from women up here, and of course we know that the issue of women and reproductive rights and those sorts of issues have been thrust into this campaign. Tell us how you think that issue is going to play out in the campaign, and how effective do you think that the Romney campaign is going to be, maybe in answering some of those charges?
Well, I've been traveling around the country talking to women about these policies, and it's clear to me that women are very concerned about this issue right now. They understand the clear difference between Mr. Romney and President Obama. You know, they know that Mr. Romney vetoed a bill to guarantee victims of sexual assault access to emergency contraception when they went into an ER. And they're disturbed by that. They're concerned about what he would mean for women's health. So I think it's going to be key when every woman walks into the voting booth and every man who cares about a woman does so. And frankly, what I've heard from Mr. Romney's camp so far is an attempt to back away from their record and to, you know, say the right thing in the heat of the political moment. But women are smarter than that. We're looking at their record. We're seeing what he did in Massachusetts and what especially Mr. Ryan did in the House of Representatives.
And how important is that, as the choice of Ryan? It seems to have galvanized a lot of folks in the pro-choice community in terms of making the case, tying to Todd Akin and using that voting record to try to tag Romney.
I think it's very clear. He sent a strong signal in picking Mr. Ryan as his running mate, and it you know, just as you said, Mr. Ryan co-sponsored bills that Mr. Akin has been criticized for, bills that would have allowed a woman who needed emergency abortion care to die in an emergency room, or bills that made distinctions between which victims of sexual assault deserved access to the care they needed. And those are policies that are incredibly out of step with what the mainstream American voter's looking for.
What do you say to folks who tell you these issues obviously are very important, but there are a whole lot of women out there who are desperate right now economically? They're holding down 2 or 3 jobs. They're just trying to get their kids off to school. That at the end of the day, it really is going to be a pocketbook election. How do you respond to that, first of all, and how does the campaign, you know, really
$100,000 that would be
with women, and I obviously we're going to hear a lot more about this issue. We're going to have a lot more discussion about these issues, of course, during the course of this campaign. What I'm curious to see, Rick, is just what the Romney campaign is going to do in terms of responding to this, right? Because they do know that it's an issue. They do know that this is something that they want to be very, very careful about how they respond to it, and I think we'll be looking for that in the next few weeks.
We're seeing on the floor behind us Lincoln Chafee, the governor of Rhode Island, the independent governor of Rhode Island, one of a couple of party switchers that we're seeing highlighted at this convention. He was a Republican. He lost his re-election race back in 2006 in that Democratic wave. Then he went on to run for governor, and he was always a lot more candidates who do that, but that's Lincoln Chafee for you.
Well, and you know, it goes to the point that Guy Cecil, the chairman of the executive director of the DSCC, just told us, which was, you know, Lincoln Chafee was the perfect example of a candidate who was very popular, and he was in Rhode Island, and he lost not because people didn't like him, but because people didn't like his party. And
That's right.
that's what's going to be very interesting to see in this election. Is this going to be about just simply another kind of wave election where candidates get swept in and out with the top of the ticket, or will individual campaigns matter? And that's what we're all going to be.
Right.
We're all going to be looking
Whether
for.
there's part of a national wave or not is going to be so critical in so many states around the country.
That's right. Well, we have.
Well, hello there.
Yes,
Hello.
we have a very special guest. What was it? A couple hours ago, she was all the way up there.
I was.
And
made
now,
your way to
and now
our
she
box.
made her
We
way
appreciate
here.
it, yeah.
Of course, DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. First of all, can you tell us what it's like being up there? What's the feeling like? Can you compare it to anything that a normal person who would never get to be up there would feel?
Wow. It's pretty awe-inspiring. I mean, it's kind of, it's similar. I haven't been to the Grand Canyon, actually, but
Well, you've been to the Everglades.
I have been to the Everglades. I practically live in the
There you go.
Everglades,
That's
Amy.
right.
So
That's right.
But it's kind of like that first time that you step out and see a breathtaking canyon. It's here in the arena, the diversity and the strength of the grassroots and the kind of convention we're running, which is the most open, accessible, inclusive convention that really American politics has ever seen. It was awe-inspiring and just such a tremendous moment of pride for me, especially as the first woman to be nominated by a sitting president to chair either major political party.
Well, I've been asking this question of just about every guest tonight in some form or fashion, but we know that 2008 was this magical time for Democrats, just the awe-inspiring moments that were throughout. Is it fair to compare it to that? Are we ever going to get back to that level of enthusiasm in your party where you just had people just enraptured with the candidate and the idea of going out and voting?
This isn't about rapture. This is about getting it done. And that's what we're going to be doing over the next 63 days. And we're going to do it by using this convention like we did in 08 as an organizing tool, making sure that over the next 63 days after this convention that we use the grassroots volunteerism. Remember in 08, on the day that President Obama accepted our party's nomination the first time in Invesco Field, we signed up 25,000 volunteers that day. We expect him to leave this convention with momentum powered by the grassroots and propel him back to the White House for a second term.
So our colleague Cokie Roberts, who's covered a few elections in her time,
Yeah, one or two.
she has a really cool seat too. She's all the way up there on the podium. She's practically right next to you.
As she should.
And her take on the Republican convention and the Democratic response to it, she said what she was most surprised at was Democrats' seeming inability or maybe their unpreparedness to answer the question about are you better off today than you were 4 years ago. What's your sense on how your party, both the Obama campaign and other Democratic surrogates, have answered that question? Because it seems like we started with a one answer over here about, well, here are the things and it's okay, and then Martin O'Malley saying no, but let me explain, to yes, we're better off within 24 hours. So I'd love to get your take on how
I
this
think
works.
too much is being made out of whatever it is that people didn't say succinctly or clearly enough. We are absolutely better off than we were 4 years ago. I mean, when President Obama took office, the economy under President Bush had just lost 3.5 million jobs, and we were hemorrhaging 750,000 jobs a month. And now, thanks to his policies, we've had 29 straight months of job growth in the private sector, a resurgence in the manufacturing sector with more jobs created since the 1990s in manufacturing. He rescued the American automobile industry. Now, we've got a long way to go. We need to keep moving forward. We certainly don't need to go back to the failed policies of the past that were actually crashed our economy and caused the loss of those jobs and allowed banks to become too big to fail. And so if you go to Mitt Romney's way, he would repeal all the progress that we've made, and I think Americans want to move forward.
How important is President Clinton in making this case? The Clinton economy, he'll be front and center tomorrow night as the primetime speaker. How important is it to hear from him in terms of crystallizing the message?
Well, President Clinton knows better than anyone else about how to preside over prosperity, because under his presidency, we had the longest sustained period of prosperity, and he handed over a surplus to President Bush, which he promptly squandered. Squandered with the help of the likes of Paul Ryan, who likes to say he's a fiscal steward, but actually voted for the Bush tax cuts, the 2001 and 2003 Bush tax cuts, unpaid for 2 wars, unpaid for a prescription drug plan, which was good for seniors, but was unpaid for, and that exploded the deficit. And that's what George W. Bush handed to President Obama.
Do you think Democrats need to do a better job, especially when it comes to rebutting Ryan, and Republicans in answering the question about the deficit. Should you be getting into a debate over whose deficit it is? Because it seems like Republicans have pretty much put that label on Democrats and been pushing that mightily, with Democrats not pushing back quite as much.
What they did last week and what they've done throughout their campaign is they've been pretty dishonest throughout their campaign. They've been called out repeatedly. I mean, I have to tell you, as a sitting member of the United States House of Representatives, it was hard for me to believe that Paul Ryan took a look at his speech draft, which was full of lies and distortions, and signed off on it and said, yeah, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that the automobile plant in Janesville was closed and it was Barack Obama's fault, even though we knew it happened under George W. Bush. I mean, how do you, I don't know, my parents taught me you should be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be able to live with yourself and what you've said. I guess maybe Paul Ryan was taught different lessons than I was.
All right, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, before you go, I need an honest assessment of my co-host softball skills. I've heard reports that she's excellent, but I need to hear it from a rival team. Where do we stand, on the grand scale of softball players?
I think their shortstop gets pretty lucky. She's
they hit a lot right to me. That's what happens. That's what happens.
Scoops them up,
But they won fair and square. We almost came back this year, but we're going to get you next year.
I know.
And we beat you last year.
You just needed to get that in, didn't you?
I do.
But I do have the trophy. I couldn't put it in my carry-on, but
it would have been embarrassing.
It would have been a little bit embarrassing.
Did you sign in on our iPad? Did you sign in on our iPad?
Absolutely.
Okay, you want to show off what you showed us? That's just a signature. Now you can do better than that.
And what is this? This is your district, Florida 20.
That is
Everybody
my district.
knows,
It's all
where
about
that is.
Florida 20.
Forward.
Oh, forward. Indeed.
Oh, all right. We got a hash sign in. I guess that gives it a little flair.
All right. that was pretty impressive.
Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
so much
coming
for
by.
being here. Thank you. We are having people sign in on the iPad all week long. We're going to be sharing all of that and more at abcnews.com, where our live stream coverage continues, as it will throughout 7 p.m. through 11:30 p.m. every night of this convention. You can watch us at abcnews.com, at Yahoo News, also on the YouTube Politics channel. Lots of places to find us. You can Twitter us at all at Rick Klein, at Amy E. Walter.
Yes, and you can also, in the next hour, I was just looking down, it's now 9 o'clock. At the 10 o'clock hour, you can also watch the ABC broadcast with Diane Sawyer and George Stephanopoulos and many other good guests taking those primetime speeches while you are watching this.
Multiple
and
screens.
Twittering. I mean, look at, right now, Rick Klein is tweeting, he's emailing, he's talking, he's interviewing. If he can do that, you can watch two things at once.
Multiple screens. And once again, if you want to check out the speakers, you can watch that at abcnews.com, where we have that of many live streams going on here. And I'm fascinated. I think Koki raised an important point, that somehow they didn't have an answer on the Sunday morning shows and going into Monday about, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Republicans started pushing it, and they found a button that they didn't know how to respond to.
Well, I think that it is clear that, you had one surrogate in Martin O'Malley who kind of threw that message off. I think the answer that they were putting forward was to try to turn the question around.
Exactly.
Right? And now, when the answer no came out of Martin O'Malley's mouth, Republicans pounced right on that, tried to turn it around, and
About
now
the
here we are.
worst things you can say. All right, we're joined now by Baratunde Thurston of Yahoo News. He has been thrusting cameras in the faces of people, unsuspecting hash-out victims. First of all, Hash-Out is an interesting new experiment, sort of an online talk show.
Right there.
Also a great T-shirt.
It is a very good-looking T-shirt.
As well. And so you've been asking people, 5 words to describe the convention?
Yeah, each day we ask a different question. It's based on the Twitter Yahoo News game, Hash-Out. This is Hash-Out on location. So the first question we asked here is the same one we asked at the RNC. What 5 words do you want to hear President Obama use during his acceptance speech?
All right, so
go for
what
it.
Can you
Give
tell
us some of the best.
All kinds of fun words. We got obvious ones like jobs.
Okay, yeah.
We got words like strong. We got words like NATO. Was a popular word. And
I wouldn't have guessed that.
And we got a lot of people unable to stick to the 5 words.
Yeah, well, it's like doing 140 characters.
No, but they would keep going and keep going and keep 5 paragraphs, 5 pages for some people. It's a very open-ended environment for some, so getting people on message is a little harder here at the DNC than the RNC.
Tell us your takeaway. You were also at the Republican convention,
That's
right?
right.
So what was your takeaway from there, and what did you come away with from talking to all these folks, and as Rick said, thrusting the camera in their face?
So it was a lot harder to thrust the camera into people's faces at the RNC.
Why is that?
People, I think maybe they're more suspicious of the media. Maybe they're less hams when it comes to the camera. That's the positive version of it. But when we got to Charlotte, people were lining up to talk to us. And that wasn't the case down in Tampa just last week. So people were much more talkative at this convention, a little bit of a looser vibe. And there, I think the overwhelming message there was jobs, 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 and then a bit about deficit and kill Obamacare. In this case, there was a wider range of responses, but the core one, if there was 4 more years. I'm going to win in November, finish what I started, that kind of mentality.
What's your sense of the social media presence here versus Tampa a week ago? We saw hashtags even more than we're seeing here in Tampa, but I'm wondering if that kind of filters down in your sense of whether people are just as engaged, more engaged, less engaged, convention to convention.
It's hard being at the convention to tell how engaged folks are with social media, because I'm in the world of 3D social media here,
Right.
just like talking to humans that I see in the hallway. I think the GOP folks did a great job organizing that convention and getting the hashtags up on the screen. They had way better screens at the RNC in
Yeah.
Tampa, much more complex.
They used it, yeah.
Yeah, it was
right.
like depth of vision. And
Right.
these guys, they have curved screens here. It's pretty cool, but it's not nearly as schmancy and fancy as the folks down in Florida did just last week.
Well, and of course, that's going to be highlighted by what it takes to put something together in a huge outdoor stadium.
That's right. Do it all over again.
All
I
right.
want holographic hashtags.
All
If
right,
we
so
can get
what's the
that.
next? The holographic. All right.
Holographic hashtags.
I would love to be a hologram. That's my new goal. All right, so what should we expect coming up for the rest of the week? What kind of trouble are you going to be getting into?
Oh, trouble? I don't know
Never,
this
never
word,
Barrett
trouble.
today, right.
I simply thrust microphones and let people provide their own trouble. No, we've asked people what other running mates they would want Obama to consider if they couldn't choose Joe Biden. And we actually asked Ashley Judd that today. We ran into her in the hallway at the convention center. And the other questions are unpredictable. I'm going to be live tweeting up a storm.
Okay.
I'm here working with a radio outlet, WNYC, so I'm doing some on-air commentary with them. And I want to have some barbecue, some authentic North Carolina.
You know, there's a place downstairs in the concession
No,
stand.
that's
Are
not.
you about to
joking
recommend?
me?
I was kidding.
That's not. Yeah, that's a huge convention party foul right there.
You almost
Amy
got
Walter.
the whole state of North
That's not-
Carolina.
I know. That's as close as I've come because I can't get out of here.
That is fully
Yeah.
not acceptable. All right, Baratunde Thurston, we'll check in with you throughout
Thanks,
the week.
Rick.
Hash out on Twitter. It's a fun experiment.
Yes, it is.
Getting people to engage in the social media space in a different way. Have this talk show.
We're at news.yahoo.com/hashout.
Excellent. Baratunde,
All right.
thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate
you.
it.
And I've
Very
always
good
wanted to
to
sit in one of these booths. This
Yeah,
is
no,
the
this
best.
it's pretty
it's
cool.
I feel
huh?
like an ESPN dude.
No, it's
like,
pretty
oh.
cool.
And I know you're
going
gonna
to wear
sign in.
these, right?
I know you're gonna sign in on our iPad as well.
I'll sign it. I'll sign anything. right
Excellent. I'll sign anything. Yeah, write that down, everyone. Baratunde Thurston. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
I have been interested. You know, Democrats do get this. They get a reputation for being the party of social engagement, right? But if you look out what's going on, you don't get a sense of that right now on this stage, that they're trying to engage that community. I think that'll change by the time we get to the outdoor arena, and they're doing lots of things to collect lots of information from folks. But as of now, I would say that Republicans are winning that battle for the hashtags, if nothing else.
Wow, it's the all-important hashtag battle. Could decide the election.
We should-
Who has engaged?
We should note that big ovation behind us is Ted Strickland, who's a very important Obama surrogate from Ohio, really making a passionate case for the auto industry, for the Obama's role in that. It's really changed a lot of people's perceptions of this race, the fact that Ohio has done so well economically in the last couple of months.
Well, he has been a very strong surrogate for the president. In fact, remember it was when the president first kind of went back on the campaign trail and started to engage, and right then it was Ted Strickland who hit it off with direct attacks at Mitt Romney. Really the first time we saw the president on the trail and his surrogates on the trail going after Mitt Romney personally.
All right, we're joined now by a completely random delegate that we just plucked from the crowd without any pre-warning or audition or anything. What's your name? Judd? Is that something like that? Ashley Judd is what I'm told.
You can call me
reliably.
Mrs. Franchitti.
Mrs. Franchitti from the Tennessee delegation
Yes.
today. First of all, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Of course, superstar Ashley Judd. How did you become a delegate? Tell us how that went down.
They asked. I mean, I've been working with the Democratic Party in Williamson County for a number of years. I just show up and do the things that they ask me to do. I've done some canvassing, voter registration, things like that. And I stay in pretty close touch with the county chair, but I also work so much on the national level with the party, as well as doing my international humanitarian work, that it was just a shock and a delight when they asked me to be a delegate.
So seriously, you are canvassing, so you show up at somebody's door and just say, Hi, my name's Ashley. I'm a volunteer with OFA.
Yes, I do.
And what kind of response do you get from people on the other side of the door?
They might want to have a picture taken at some point, but honestly, they want to talk about the issues.
Really?
They want to talk about why I'm involved, where they are with their thinking. And a lot of people, because I've been to North Carolina and Iowa so far, and I will go wherever the president wants me to go, are talking about the impact that the healthcare reform has had on their lives. I mean, people are telling me very personal stories, like a woman in Iowa actually came forward in front of a large crowd at a county dem office and said, I'm living proof a woman can conceive when raped. And she was not able to access a termination and had a very late-term miscarriage that was absolutely horrifying and threatened her long-term reproductive health. So when I go canvassing and talk with people, they want to talk about what's real, because this election is real.
So what's your sense of the engagement that people have, not just you, but the people you're talking to out there? Are these Obama supporters before that are somewhat disappointed? I mean, if people were this excited before, how do you get back to that level? Are they close?
My experience is that President Obama's supporter from 2008 are equally electrified and motivated in this election. I think that they have an understanding that when he came to office, it was about triage. It was about stopping the bleeding. The economy was hemorrhaging. And he had to do, the massive stimulus package where 95% of Americans got a tax break in order to just right the ship and prevent a Great Depression. And then he started to get to do the things that, Yes We Can and Hope and Change was all about. And they want 4 more years so that he can continue to manifest the progress that has been made. And part of what is discouraging, as I'm sure you all experience in your position, is the misinformation, the distortion, the obfuscation. I mean, it's just kind of crazy out there. And I find that people really want honesty, they want facts, and they want to know how their lives are going to be affected.
Talk a little bit about Obama, and the healthcare issue. I know we're going to hear about it up on this stage, but we haven't heard that much about it on the campaign trail. The president talks about it a little bit, but you don't see the real strong advertising effort behind it, or a real emphasis on this is something that he did in his first term. Do you think that's a mistake? Do you think there should be more emphasis on this issue during the campaign by Democrats?
I do, and I think that individuals should share their personal narrative, because what comes from the head goes over the head, and what comes from the heart goes straight to the heart. So in Tennessee, for example, 350,000 children cannot be denied health care insurance because of a pre-existing condition. That's 350,000 families that have a story to tell. And I think it's 60,000 young people are now covered on their parents' insurance until the age of 26. So they can graduate from vocational school or college and start a career in income generation and not have a health shock destroy their finances.
Do you think people know that? People even in Tennessee know that?
I don't think a lot of people in Tennessee know that. But by the way, this is a huge number. 600,000 Tennesseans accessed free preventative services in 2011. So, what's the deal? That's good stuff.
What is the deal? Yeah.
What's held that up? I mean, why not? Is it that people don't know?
I think Tennessee needs to look to Arkansas for a cue.
Why is that?
What's that?
It's the most progressive southern state. They've had a Democratic House and Senate since Reconstruction.
But it's not in danger of voting for Obama anytime soon.
Tennessee or Arkansas?
Either one.
Well, Arkansas, I don't know. Tennessee, probably not. A lot of our volunteers are going to North Carolina. But I'd like to be a part of the narrative. I'd like to share the stories.
Is there something bigger about Obama and the promise that he had at the time? People were expecting, obviously, lots of progress in terms of legislation. They were also expecting, I think, that business would be done differently, that it would be a new day in Washington. They feel like they didn't get that because of the way the health care bill even went down. Was there a missed opportunity there in not just passing legislation, but fundamentally changing the town?
Well, I was at the political parity event earlier today, and they're doing really deep surgical research on why women do and do not run for office. And the primary reason they cite for wanting to run for office is to change the way government functions. And I do think that the president has made some strides. Obviously, he chose not to take money from lobbyists, and there is more reform to be done, without a doubt. I mean, our government needs to be streamlined and reformed, and I don't want to get too out of my depth and pretend that I know a lot about something where I really don't. But he had some challenges with Congress. There's no doubt that he was stymied. And when he said he wanted to put America back to work with some legislation, what the Republicans said is, no, we want to put the president out of work. So he can't do it by himself. I mean, Lilly Ledbetter Act, he could sign with the pen. enabling the DREAM Act to the extent that it was, he can do with a pen. But no one person can go into Washington and completely transform it without a lot of collaboration and help.
Well, when you said parody, I thought it was P-A-R-O-D-Y until I realized it was P-A-R-I-T-Y. Okay.
And that's my southern accent. I
No,
need to be
no.
careful.
No, I would do the same. No. All right, so does this mean maybe you are thinking about elected office at some point?
The gentlelady from Tennessee, what do you think?
Everybody else is thinking about it for me. I am not thinking about it for myself. My desire is to love my God, to make my life an act of worship, and to be of service to my fellows. And right now, I think that I'm in a space that's the best use of me. And, you know, whatever.
Well, here's the bigger question. As a delegate from Tennessee, can you really talk about your love of the Wildcats? I mean, isn't that against everything Tennesseans stand for? I mean, they must.
I had to make sure when I first opened my mouth at the Tennessee delegation
Yes.
breakfast to say, okay, let me just straighten this out. I root for the Volunteers and I root for the Commodores, except when y'all are playing the Wildcats. Can you accept me? And they did.
And they did?
Yes.
So it's okay.
I think I'm cool.
All right.
That sounds like an Obama speech somewhere, like a red America, blue America, everyone comes together if they can accept that. Exactly. Doesn't sound like you're ruling it out, though. This whatever is...
No, I'm not ruling it out, and it would be foolish to say that I am. I honestly don't know that it's the best use of me, but I also don't know the future. And my favorite prayer is Thomas Merton's, which says, "I don't know where I'm going. I don't even know if I'm on the right path, but I do believe the desire to please you, in fact, pleases you," and that's what's important.
So who gets better tickets to the events? Delegates or Hollywood celebrities or somewhere in between? What's the best?
I like where the Tennessee delegation
Do
is
you?
sitting. I'm pretty psyched.
Where are you? Are you guys on the floor?
Yes, we're just over there to the left of the media dais.
Oh,
Excellent.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good. So, did you have anything to do with that seating arrangement?
No.
No, you weren't able to just make your case.
I am just a lowly delegate at large.
And has anybody come to your delegate events, breakfasts, anything like this that has been interesting, different?
You mean like contrary?
Well, no, I mean usually at these delegate breakfasts they bring in a speaker, they bring in somebody that they want to promote nationally. Has anybody come by and?
You know, I met a woman who is a county commissioner in Michigan, and she was talking about what a lonely walk it is because she doesn't really have any mentors. So I gave her my email address. I don't know how much I can help her from Tennessee, but part of what I'm hearing is the need for strong female-to-female alliances. And the way that we can cultivate our courage and our strength by having strong mentoring relationships. So that's something I'm hearing about. And I got to meet Miss Archuleta today, who I think has like the coolest job in the country, being the president's political director. And then I spoke today after Donna Brazillo, which was cruel. She was sensational.
So maybe you don't run for office, but you would be a White House political director. You think that would be a cool job?
I was thinking about applying to be a White House fellow when I graduated from graduate school. Wouldn't that be a gas?
That would be
so much fun.
Very cool. Well, Ashley Judd, we thank you for joining us here. I know you have to get back to important delegate business.
Yes, get
down
down
on the
there.
floor.
Hot snacks.
Yes.
Gotta go.